Bang bang, we're here. Oh god, we made it through. We are here, Victoris Amateur Series playoff season, baby. The regular split is done, and now time for some playoffs fun. As usual, or whenever I decide to show my face, it is your host with the most that doesn't like to boast. It's Beautiful Crow. Joining me is the man, the myth, the legend, the farmer Dan to my little Bo Peep. It is Kevbo on the side over there.
What's
Here
up?
I was thinking I was getting the nice intro.
I have something jumped up for you. Wait your turn, Dodge-kun.
Dodgekin!
Yamate Crow, Yamate. Oh, okay.
But
That's a leave out. Go ahead, please. Introduce me with all the aplomb.
Okay. Well, I mean, we gotta let Kevbo say hi first, since you rudely interrupted him.
True. My bad.
You know what? The only thing you need to know is that we're here and that we still have a 100% win rate on Blitzcrank Jungle.
All the Blitzcrank Jungle stonks rising, and also joining us, the NB who decided to be so rudely interruptory today. You're a bad one. I have to get the flogger for you. It's Infinite Dodge.
Ooh, don't threaten me with a good time, an even better time perhaps than the matchup we have here tonight. I don't think so. It's going to be a pretty exciting one because we're into playoffs, Crow.
Yes, we are into playoffs. The round of 16 starts today. As usual, it starts with the 16, goes with the top 8, goes with the 4, and into the finals, all the way through this month and beginning of the next month. Today's featured matchup is going to be quite interesting. We have Rising Tide Typhoon versus the Gecko Hawks. If I could get the playoffs graphics coming up on the screen, we can just talk about them as they go over. We are looking at a nice little 16, as we do already have the match results from CB Dragons versus Cape Dog Unleashed. Rest in peace of them. But yeah, looking at this going top to bottom, Day Spa versus Going Ghost. I know that's a matchup Kevbo wanted to talk about. Nameless Entropy versus Nameless Asylum. Oh man, we have a few civil wars going on in this 16 because, we have the top, top 4 from each group into all the spots in the 16. So unfortunately, there will be some civil war shenanigans. Which sister team is better than the other? We will find out shortly as we are looking across the Ds. And just in this top half right here, I know Day Spa versus Going Ghost is going to be amazing. But Singularity versus Redemption might be something to watch as well. The second seed of Group D versus the third seed of Group A. Always a banger.
Now, not to interrupt Kevo, I'm sorry, just real quick. I know I'm being so interrupted tonight. I just want to comment. Cape Dog's going down is pretty sad, right? Because they were our big upset 4th seed in the last playoffs, right?
Yes.
They come out pretty strong, so I'm sad to see them go. But Kevbo, we have some other great matchups, despite the fact that the cutest little doggies are gone. So I will now allow you to move forward into breaking down some of the matches we got.
Yeah, I think it should be interesting. I definitely want to. I think Going Ghost and Daysball are probably the favorite on that side of the bracket. Obviously CB Dragons, I expect to make semifinals. They were our champions in the last split, but I think I would expect that the winner of that first game is probably going to be who I would expect to meet them in semis. So that's definitely one to keep our eyes on to see how close that one is. Going Ghost looked pretty good when we did stream them, but of course Dayspaw did end up topping their group. They're the only undefeated team coming into playoffs.
Oof. That's a little formidable, a little scary, a little foreboding. Spooky
Stakes,
season.
pressure.
Just amazing. If we can go on to the next half of the bracket, if we do have that, it's just gonna be some action. You see it starting off at the top, Rising Tide versus Gecko Hawks, where we are today, where the start begins for our, I guess you could say, the protagonist of Victoris for this year, as in from spring through summer to fall now, we have seen them so close to the crown. All the way back in spring, they got to the finals and lost. Back in summer, they managed to make it to quarterfinals and lost. If downward trajectory is a consistent thing, this might favor the Gecko Hawk.
I mean, it would be real sad for Rising Tide, right? Because they already skipped right over semifinals, so they, it's not that perfect downstep either. So it would be a hard way to go out. It seems like they're plummeting pretty fast if they go out in the rounds of 16. But like you said, Crow, they're kind of our main characters here in a sense, moving forward through the VAS. Throughout the entirety of this year, just because we've seen so much of them. Rising Tide been a mainstay org, all of its teams in the various levels of play. So Typhoon definitely looking good here, and they kind of lucked out a little bit here, right, Kevbo? Because they were actually second in their group, but we did actually see the former members of Red Panda Gaming who are now in a team whose name I can't recall. Golden Providence, not Promise. They have respectfully decided to bow out of playoffs after losing a member. So definitely a nice little step up for Rising Tide here. Crow to right the wrongs that have happened and sort of go against the tendency we've seen from them to finish a little bit worse in last split than the split before. They have a chance to reverse their fate here and get a nice matchup against a 4th seed because they got gifted a 1st seed coming out of Group C here.
Absolutely. All the eggs in their basket, the momentum, the wind at their back. Gonna try and make the mad dash for finals, but also in this other Civil War matchup we were talking about, the Tenebrous Clan, Ethereal versus Phantasm. That just sounds cool. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, they have the coolest names. Like, that's so crazy. But another battle of the brother-sister teams having to duke it out here in quarterfinals. Who will succeed and who will fall? We will have to find out next time on Victoris Ball Z. Going on to the next matchup, To the Moon Skull versus NSG Infinity. I love everybody on NSG Infinity. I love Natural Selection as an org. Them combining all of their teams into one big Captain Planet-esque team. One of them finishing 4th in Group A. Group A has a lot of heavy hitters though. So like, I don't even fault them for that. At least they did get into playoffs. But I definitely have them as my dark horse to win it all. If they can push it all the way to the finals, we'll have to see how they go.
We do have to be careful with that, though. I know NSG, I think, were the... I can't remember whether it was them or Iridescent Dawn's Cerberus that went out after being undefeated in the regular season. Went out in the first round last
summer?
Split. Yeah.
Oh, that was...
I believe they were the team that won against Iridescent Dawn Cerberus in the round of 16.
Right.
Which... No.
So...
I guess I was wrong. A little bit... No. I do think that it is going to be a rough road ahead of them.
Yeah.
I mean, especially looking down to this next matchup we have. Bing Chillers, we saw on stream just like, I think, a couple weeks ago, and they were one of the most consistent looking teams I think I've seen in VAS. They just played, like, their macro was just better than whoever they played against. I can't really remember exactly who that was. I think Group B looks like the strongest group to me.
Okay.
And I think my dark horse is the 2nd seed here from Group B to win it all.
That's valid, yeah. I definitely understand that. Bing Chillers, Omega, absolutely correct in that sense, talking about their macro play and how they're able to just completely out-rotate and out-damage their opponents. And that was literally, there were just so many ties in Group B. It was insane. The top 2 and the top 4 in general were just all tied just in different respects, you know? So who's really the 1st seed, who's really the 2nd, like 1st through 4th, it's kind of a jumble up in there. But looking back to our featured matchup as we move away from the brackets group. Thank you so much, Kono, you amazing producer today. I think it's time to talk about the matchup. Time to talk about the two teams we have here. Rising Tide Typhoon, 1st and 2nd seed in Group C versus the Gecko Hawks, the 4th seed in Group D. Quite the underdog matchup for the Gecko Hawks here. Talk to me. Let me know, what are the keys to victory for this lineup? Let's talk about how can they manage to, pull up such a probable upset if they do get the victory here.
Well, I think a lot of it rests on the top lane matchup if we're talking about how Gecko Hawks can actually go ahead and find the upset. Wargloves has been on these split pushing types The Yorick, his most played, probably going to be getting banned out here. Very annoying champ. Warps sort of the face of the game here, Kevbo, when you do have to play against somebody who's pretty competent at that Yorick pick.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I don't expect to get through in any of these games. Of course, we are still on this best of 3 for the round of 16. So teams going to be playing, I think, a little bit more restrained than they necessarily would in a best of 5. So I don't expect the York to get through. Something else to note, I believe Wargloves is the only plat player in this match. Of course, it is every team gets one exception, but Rising Tide does not have one. I think I didn't get quite the chance to look at everyone's elo, but I believe that the biggest gap is in top lane. I did look. Boulder is gold 3 right now, so definitely going to be an uphill battle, I think, especially against Wargloves, whose pool looks pretty split pushy, like you said, and also pretty lane dominant.
Yeah, I do actually want to just snowball off of that for a second, just because I have some internal data about the workings of Rising Tide that actually points to something here. So Wargloves is second most played behind the Yorick. The other big pick to look out for is the Garen. Now, we don't see that a whole lot, but Rising Tide actually has a pretty big advantage when it comes to facing against the Garen, because their sister team, Rising Tide S-Eagles, the other gold plat team in their organization, their captain, Slim Frusa, renowned Garen, signature pick of his, and it's very game warping. He's a former perennial plat player, doesn't play a whole lot now, so is mostly in gold season on season, but one of the big strategic leaders of the Rising Tide S-Eagles, Rising Tide Typhoon's sister team, and they've scrimmed against him a whole lot. I know he was listed during the regular season as one of Rising Tide's subs, so definitely a player who is involved in the scene of Rising Tide Typhoon, and they've played against a good amount, although they don't like playing scrims against Slim because his Garen is just so annoying to go against. Very game warping player, has some very unique ideas about how to play the Garen, but Rising Tide are actually specifically practiced against going against, a focal point of the team playing Garen, which is not something that a whole lot of teams can say. So you can ban the Yorick because it's so game warping, it's so changes so much the rhythm of the game and how it's played. It's a big power tool you don't want to give to Wargloves, and you know how to play against the Garen, you have the experience against it. Besides just being the first seed overall, coming in a little bit hotter as a team, should give Rising Tide Typhoon some big advantages here, bro.
We'll have to see, because, I 100% want to pull from our Rising Tide boys. I really do. Thank you for the inside information, Agent Dodge. But things could go pretty crazy here, There's a chance in a world where this little 4th seed that could, coming from Group D, could just completely flip the whole table on us, But it's a tall order. It's a tall task, right? It's a very tall task for these Gecko Hawks. I wonder what a Gecko Hawk would actually look like. Never mind, I'm gonna trail off. Let me not do that.
That's like an Avatar: The Last Airbender,
right? Yeah.
Right?
Also, all you have to do is go look at their logo, I think.
I mean, that doesn't give me enough of a picture, Kevbo. I've already looked at the logo, obviously.
Yeah, get a 3D representation, a nice render, be pretty sweet.
Right. All I'm saying is, I want myself a turtle duck.
Oh, they're so cute.
Absolutely.
Literally the cutest things.
That's my favorite gag in Avatar 2, when the Earth King has a bear.
My bear!
They're all confused. They're like, what, a platypus bear?
Platypus bear?
A rhinoceros bear? No, just a bear.
A bear. That makes me think. I'm like, are regular animals just endangered species? That'll have to wait. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna step behind the curtain for a bit. Casters, do your thing. We're in the draft for game 1 of this series between Rising Tide and the Gecko Hawks. See ya.
Thank you, Crow. We will have to see if Rising Tide can make an endangered species out of the Gecko Hawks. And they are electing red side to do it here in Game 1, Kevbo. They do have side selection for Games 1 and 3 as the higher seed coming in. You have managed to fix your camera's wonkiness. I'll do that in a second while you tell us about some of these bans that have come through here in the first phase.
Yeah, something we didn't quite get to hit on in draft, but I think is quite important, is Gerbs likes to play a lot more assassins, whereas Coconut plays a lot of, I think, really control style picks. Something that they've been pulling out a lot that I'm actually shocked didn't get banned is the Syndra, reworked and more powerful than ever. Going to get through the Maokai, however, first pick coming through, I think. I mean, it's just the best flex in the game right now, right?
It's the best flex. You could argue it's just the best pick in general. I mean, we've seen that Worlds, it has like 70% win rate, as we do see Rising Tide opt for the Misfortune here on their first pick. Rel is spicy. They're going to pair it up with that, but Maokai was a big deciding factor in our VRD playoff matchup last night. Went the full 5 games, went the Silver Scrapes. It was pretty hype. We'll see if we can get the full 3-game run through here tonight in the VAS, but we don't see Rel a whole lot, even in the highest levels of play. Really only a couple of signature players bringing that one out. It's a strong pick, pairs up well with the Misfortune for the Wombo, so that's a nice little pickup here, Kevbo. But GeckoHawk's now working with pretty complete information about the opposing bot lane, not choosing to pick up any bot lane members for themselves, however, quite yet.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting picking the Rel this early, though, especially into Colico. They seem to play a lot of Enchanter-style champions, and if you really want something that is engage heavy, I would have expected more like a Thresh pick, or an Alistar even, early into 18 like GeckoHawks. Of course, the only player that really looked like they played a lot of Maokai was the support Colico here, so maybe thinking that the Rel is just an answer into the Maokai. I would imagine that matchup is pretty good for the Rel. But actually going to be picking up the jungle Amumu into the Jarvan. Both these picks, I mean, Amumu is just a staple at this level of play, and J4 is just a staple at every level of play. But Yorick made it all the way through to the second round of bans. Not going to go any further, though. Absolutely not. No way, no how. But I expect that we're just going to continue trading bans here. I'm surprised to see GeckoHawks ban the Gnar, because I think that is something that Wargloves does maybe like to play a decent amount.
I mean, I don't think this Maokai is going to be support. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It is technically a flex, but I haven't seen it played at a pro level anywhere besides jungle and top right now. I think it's kind of a waste of a very powerful champion to limit it to a support's gold income. And normally the support build is a little bit wonky too, right? You go like an Emax, Imperial Mandate, or you go like a Locket. It's just not as valuable. So I think we're just sort of seeing GeckoHawks pick an order right now. So they're happy to ban the Gnar because they already have their top laner. Rising Tide, in the meanwhile, you know, have a lot of Wombo potential, but GeckoHawks, to me, Kev, very high utility, very high CC composition right now. Not necessarily a lot of damage. That is the dinger. Somebody at Gurf, get him out of bed. Oh my goodness.
Oh my word. It is the dinger, the Heimerdinger coming through. Gurf is getting spoiled. I think this is the second Heimerdinger this week for Gurf. In Victoris. Kind of an interesting pick as an answer into the Lysandra, but that's a very aggressive bot lane pick coming through for Jiraxel. I'm not sure how that one does end up going. I think that it probably means that Rel has even more value, especially because Tristana kind of wants to go in on top of Rel, and Rel is just good at saying no.
Yeah, saying no.
The only thing that I really think would be necessarily better here is the Thresh into the Tristana is very Thresh favored. However, it is going to beat Colico on something that is going to have a lot of power.
Yeah, it's going to be Maokai coming in. I was a little bit getting ahead of myself. I figured it would be the Maokai top, but I think this makes a lot of sense For Gecko, it adds a lot more all-in power. They're very dive-heavy comp. Tristana, Maokai, J4, Lissandra all want to come forward. They want to lock you up. The Slicing Maelstrom adds a lot to that. Kled, however, this is a big money counter pick into a squishy range champion. You can all in. You have 2 health bars to play with. You can really make their life miserable if you can survive the early going. So this is a nice little pickup from Boulder here. And these are some pretty unique drafts compared to what we've been seeing for a while here, Kepo. Tristana, not super uncommon, but less so than the likes of Caitlyn or Miss Fortune, which we see all the time. Kennen top is exciting. Kled, Rel, Heimerdinger. These are 2 really interesting and exciting drafts we have in front of us.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to think really about either of these drafts, because they're not things that you really like. Even in solo queue, these aren't things that I really see a whole lot. I mean, like, I think Gecko Hawks is more likely to be a draft that you actually see in like solo queue or just like draft games.
Yeah. The Heimerdinger certainly throws in a wrinkle that you don't expect in normal 5v5 play.
It's just very, I think wonky is the word I would use. Like, pretty much it seems like what these teams have drafted is every single matchup is just going to be volatile.
Yeah.
Like, you either win hard or you lose hard in pretty much every single one of these matchups. I think the thing that I favor the most for one team or the other is I think the 2v2 bot side for Rising Tide is just way better into a Maokai and a Tristana that kind of want to step forward into you. Miss Fortune, of course, though, did get hit with some nerfs, so not going to be quite as strong as she was previously, but I think especially with the Rel backing her up and the Maokai that really wants to step into the attract repel, you know, like you jump forward on the Maokai and you're just going to get stunned immediately.
Well, it's a little hard to buffer, right? Because your W is going to go off and root her before she can stun you. It's not like something, because he goes untargetable, so you're trading 1 for 1 in terms of who's getting CC'd, so it's a little bit more volatile than I would have expected from your typical engage support that could come in there, as we do see the flexes unraveled here. Thank you to the producer. Pretty easy for Gecko Hawks this time around. They picked 3 of their picks in the right spot, but Rising Tide, of course, were a little bit more obfuscated. Now we do see where everybody is going. What strikes me as interesting here, Kepo, is both of these teams seem to be pretty much locked in on dive. Like, they're very, Rising Tide is pretty much a wombo dive comp, except for the Heimerdinger. I feel like he has a bit of a tough time following up on that. He almost wants to be kiting back, running around his turrets, waiting for you to engage on him. So I'm not sure, maybe that upgraded grenade on his E could be his way of contributing to a big wombo fight, but it just doesn't seem to be as synergistic to me with the rest of the team as Gecko Hawks and the rest of Rising Tide is on that dive identity.
I think also, I think what the Heimerdinger does offer really well, though, is the objective control that you wouldn't necessarily have with the rest. The Maokai is going to have decent objective control with the ultimate, but just if you are able to, it's kind of the same thing with Aloy. If you're able to get to the objective first and you're able to set up really well on this Heimerdinger, you should be able to have a much better fight. So I'm really looking to see how much priority that they have on these neutral objectives, especially Dragons. I think they're going to struggle a little bit early with the J4 and the Tristana being pretty good at skirmishing in the early game. It's all over the place. I think it comes down to whether or not War Gloves can get a big team fight ultimate.
Yeah, very much so. As I'm going to ask you real quick before we do throw it to the loading break, just very briefly, who's winning game 1? You want to explain yourself so badly, but I said
no. I don't have any favorings towards either team. I'm going to pick Rising Tide just because they are the first seed here, and not because I think one draft is favored over the other. I think these are pretty even drafts.
Fair enough. Always bet on the safe side. I'm going to give it to Gecko Hawks. I'm going to say they take a game in this series. I think their comp is very cohesive and works very well. Just a little bit better than Rising Tide, definitely. It's not like a huge draft avalanche or anything, but I think it works well. It's easy to execute, and that's always the biggest thing. But Obviously, it could go either way. We will see which way it goes after a quick break to load on into game. Let that spectator delay passes on by. So don't go anywhere. We will return in just a moment here, folks. Stay tuned.
What you gonna do now? It's your reflection looking back to pull you down. So are you gonna die today or make it out alive? You gotta conquer the monster in your head and then you'll fly, fly, Phoenix fly. It's time for a new empire. Go bury your demons, then tear down the ceiling, Phoenix fly. And now you're playing with matches, come out of the ashes underneath you. A million voices in the crowd, they're screaming, stop now. Well, let them swallow the pride, you're turning the tide to true believers. Got them in the palm of your hand, you're playing God now. What you gonna do now? It's your reflection looking back to pull you down. So are you gonna die today or make it out alive? You gotta conquer the monster in your head and then you'll fly, fly, Phoenix fly. It's time for a new empire. Go bury your demons, then tear down the ceiling, Phoenix fly. What you gonna do So are you gonna die today or make it out alive? You gotta conquer the monster in your head and then you'll fly, fly, Phoenix fly. It's time for a new empire. Go bury your demons, then tear down the ceiling, Phoenix fly.
We at the top again, now what? We lay the crown, but count us higher than a mountain. And we be up here for the long run, strap in for a long one. We got everybody on one. Now you coming at the king, so you better not miss. And we only get stronger with everything I carry up on my back. You should paint it up with a target. Why would you dare me to do it again? Come get your spoiler, but we're taking over. We're taking over. Hey, look at you calling my name. You ought to know by now that we're taking over. We're taking over. Hey, maybe you wonder what your future's gonna be. send you back home, let you wake up. Why would you dare me to do it again? Come on, get your sport out the head. We're taking over. We're taking over. Hey, look at you coming, my name. You ought to know by now that we're taking over. We're taking over. Hey, maybe you wonder what your future's gonna be, but I got it all locked up. 在以后，除了是傻子，还有其他吗？我左右，键盘琵琶在时间滴答着，还不够。你的固执让我来守候，哪怕太迟也不想以后。就在这时放肆的挑逗。I got the heart of a lion, I know the harder you climb, the harder you fall. I'm at the top of the mountain, too many bodies to count. I've been through it all. I had to weather the storm to get to the level I'm on. That's how the legend was born. All of my enemies already dead. I'm born, I'm ready for war. They know I'm ready for war. I told
Here we are, everybody. We are on to the Rift for game number 1 of the VAS playoffs. I'm Infinite Dodge, joined by Kevbo, the Blitzcrank propagandist master, the color caster who brings the color to every interaction. It is my pleasure to be here, Kev, and see this little stack coming on through. And this is a little bit cheeky from Rising Tide. No, this is Geckos on blue. It's all good. We'll get it flipped. Just going to take a second here, but yeah, it is Geckos on blue, and they're looking to catch some sort of invade.
Yeah, you kind of expect it with the Rel, right? Like, the Rel level 1 with the crash down is just going to be insane. So predicting it and making a little bit of a 5-stack means that they will get out scot-free there, as Warglove is going to make their way up to the top side. Hopefully get something done, as there we go. Back in shape. And it looks like it will be a bot to top clear for both junglers here. I think makes sense for both of them, as Boulder will actually spot out the cannon there.
Yeah, and Keba, I was a little bit curious about this. I don't know if you've encountered this bug, but so let me rephrase that. Magic damage shields or pure physical damage shields, like Camille's Precision Protocol shield, like any shield that isn't just a normal white shield is bugged right now, where it's showing up in multiple colors, and that counts for Skarl's health bar as well. So Skarl's health bar up there has a long white line on the bottom of it that doesn't indicate anything besides a bug, as we see that crash down that you were calling out already used. It's a nice chunk onto Jiraxel there. Trade back isn't going to be near as effective either. Only got that explosive charge 1 stage forward, as now Calico is going to be eating the worst end of a trade. Does have that Nature's Grasp and the Relic Shield, however, here, Kevbo, to sustain up a little bit.
Yeah, and level 2 is also going to be scary. Big B can kind of just, I think, flash and then get the flip as well pretty easily. But Wave State is just not, I think, in the right spot for that. And as soon as you get the level 2 coming through, I think Calico also has a lot of trading potential. But it's going to be, I think, a little bit spicy here for just a second. Going to be hovering the bush.
Ooh, that was a nice buffer from Calico to actually stop the progression forward from Bigby there. Nicely done. Unfortunately, Jiraxel and Calico already out of potions here, Kev.
Yeah, so the Rel is really doing what it needs to do, which is win in lane here against the Maokai. Of course, some cheeky shenanigans going on top side. It looks like both junglers going to end up being up here. Boulder is getting the push, as the Rel there on the other side of the map going to get the first blood, so doing well thus far. I think they can actually probably dive this if Rel still has flash up.
Yeah, they're going in on it. It's a fight topside as well, as Wargloves gets pulled back, but they get the kill under turret. overrush, and Bigby splitting the kills there, but that's exactly how you want it to go. You pick this lane-dominant lane, and now the dive really going to be hard for Draxel and Calico at any point moving forward. They both blew summoners. A 3-for-2 trade up for them at least, but they did both die, and now the wave going to get crashed top lane as well. So Rising Tide in a great spot, up 1.5K here. Definitely a good sign for all of our Rising Tide believers in the chat. Gecko's gonna have to regroup and try and get the mental going again, but that CS lead, that's something, Dev.
Yeah, and the worst part of that is that it means that, as we see here, MF going to get going to get several items in. An early Merc's tread from the Rel as well. And the early gold league might mean that we no longer have a priority on this dragon for the side of Gecko Hawks here.
It's very well possible. They can try and get in on it as they do have some vision in the pit. It will be hitting the rift in just 10 seconds here as we take a look at just the amount of darkness that did exist in that river there for the side of Rising Tide. It's a bit more telegraphed for Geckos. Jarvan is down on that bot side, and you can push fairly easily with the E explosive charge passive on Tristana, so maybe they can shove and roam up towards it, but it's just a Cloud Drake, right, coming in first, so it's possible they just decide, it's okay, our bot lane's already behind, we don't want to get wiped fighting for a Drake that we don't really need. Maybe they just give up on it, but some cheeky little plays coming down from Overrush and Bigby down in that bot lane.
Yeah, it looks like they will use it as a back opportunity, though, as the Heimerdinger are going to use the teleport back into the mid lane, trying to set up that mid play again. And it looks like Overrush and Bigby might just, well, as I say that, they're going to step a little bit too far forward here, it looks like.
I mean, Rel's so tanky, even with a basically fully charged explosive charge coming on in there. Not going to wind up doing too much. And I'm actually curious, I know the passive explosion magic damage from a Tristana E, like when she kills a minion and that explodes, that's magic damage. I don't know if the active damage from the bomb exploding when you put it on somebody is magic damage, but if so, those Merc Treads for Big B maybe doing a little bit of work at reducing that. But here it comes, Spoopy Lance, moving on past this ward, however, will give Gerbs plenty of indication that you gotta back up a little bit. Besides, Heimerdinger doesn't really mind being dove as far as those immobile mages in mid lane go.
Yeah, you do have to be careful how you play around. I believe it's the W that has the stun on it, but other than that, it should be pretty safe, as Boulder actually going to spot out Spoopy Lance and go immediately on top of them. Flash going to be
flash, and now that Gromp will be there for swag money. That's a nice little play coming on in, was going all the way around the piece of terrain to just hook off Spoopy Lance maybe if he did flash the wrong way, flash the wide way into lane, so Mumu can't really queue him up and lock him down, but does claim the spoils of victory anyway. Will hit 6 first. Maybe not going to have a chance to really utilize that for any active plays, but can use the pressure of that 6 to move on over to this Drake and sort of dare Geckos to approach, lest they get womboed up, as we see Calico in the wrong spot at the wrong time, forced to flash. Bigby looking for the follow-up now, going to get hit with that explosive charge, but it don't mean much of nothing here. Just going to back off, move towards that Drake.
Yeah, and this is such a nice spot to be in for Swag Money Boy here. Has Prio in every single lane at the moment, so objective control going to come in pretty easily. Gonna take that one down pretty quick as well with the Heimerdinger turrets. Boulder with no Scarl on the top side should be playing pretty passive though for the next couple of seconds. I'm interested to see if they do maybe try to look for a bit of a dive, as Wargloves with a nice trade there.
Yeah, I mean, it's well played from Wargloves. He knows that he needs to really leverage those lane bully aspects of Kennen as a champion. The issue is when you're being this hard pressured on the map already at 8 minutes, your jungler's down bot side. He's not in a way to help you. Your mid laner's pushed in because of these Heimerdinger turrets, and now even the opposing support already moving up towards this Rift Herald, getting ready for that objective take. So you have no follow-up to help you out. As in the mid lane, we have a fight going down. This is what Geckos was looking for. They're going to force the flash from Gerbs, and they're going to skewer him on the end of that Icicle Acid Coconut, picking one up now. A nice little answer back from Geckos as Calico going to help push out and secure a bounce off the back of it as well. Regain some advantage state in this game here, Kev.
Yeah, and really leveraging the power of that Lysandra there with the Glacial Prison, question mark?
I was just doing the Sporkle Ultimates quiz on this, so I am aware that it is Glacial Tomb for the Lysandra.
Sorry.
As we do see some, I always get them confused, and I'm a play-by-play. I'm supposed to know that, Kev. There's no need to be sorry. But yeah, a lot of lockdown for that Lysandra.
Yeah, and with the Jarvan as well, I mean, there is just no moving. Even if you flash out, sometimes you can't get away from this combo, and that's why we see it picked across all levels of play. As Spoopy Lance going to look for the cannon up here, I think is going to probably die before Swag Money gets there.
Boulder actually going to get over the wall. Can he get the Triumph Croc back in? Yes, he finds the bravery, he finds the courage, he finds his Skarl, he finds not quite a double kill though, unfortunately, as Jarvan slips on out there. It was a real close exchange. Spoopy Lance was there first, but just not quite enough damage or focus to get through Boulder before he did find that Skarl remount, so things continuing to snowball in favor of Rising Tide, even in this bot lane situation as well.
Yeah, already up almost 30 CS is Overrush here on this MF. Currently at a 3k gold lead at 10 minutes is pretty significant. It's going to be very hard, I think, especially on all these early game focused champions in the Tristana, in the Jarvan that really wants to get into action early, going to struggle, I think, a little bit more the later into this game we get. And the worst part about it, like we said at the beginning, is this Heimerdinger is going to continue scaling, and the objective control that they are going to have simply through Heimerdinger and Rel existing is going to be absolutely insane.
Absolutely, and it stinks too because while you do point out that Tristana is like an early game champion, right, it does scale pretty well because of the passive, that range that's expanding, but Jiraxel went full early game, leveraged in on that Hail Blade instead of a lethal tempo, so not really going to be that same DPS threat on the Trist in the late game. Meanwhile, Misfortune, after the changes that came through, crit build is the way to go, more focused on the DPS, but we see Gerbs in the wrong spot once again, locked down over and over. This Heimer Stinger has no sting no more, as Acid Coconut and Spoopy Lance just rinse, wash, repeat, and now it will be Boulder and War Gloves going for a bit of deja vu as well, but not going to full commit to the death on that one.
Yeah, and Gerbs, yet again, not respecting the Jarvan, did spot him out on the control ward previously, but I guess just expecting the Jarvan had backed off instead of going for the wraparound look. Swag Money going to do their laner a favor and go ahead and push that one in, though. Gold should be pretty even still, I think, in the mid lane, despite those 2 kills. He should be up a decent amount. Acid Coconut here, maybe like half an item or so.
Yeah, if we can get a quick look at the gold score from production, we can, suss out that that's 800, so that's a Kindle Gem's worth of stats at least going on over for Coconut. We'll see if Rising Tide can get Gerbs back into things with this Rift Herald take. They are onto that one. They might elect to use it mid lane, to try and even things out a little bit there, as we see War Gloves hovering around, not going to approach, not going to spot it out, so the Rift Herald does slip on over into Swag Money's pocket here. We'll just have to wait and see where he does put it down.
Yeah, and the worst part about this is that even though Big B hasn't been in lane, they are still just hemorrhaging gold on that bot side, as it looks like a dive might actually come through. No Glacial Tomb or Acid Coconut.
Yeah, Spoopy Lance actually traps Bigby, but does have that crash down to just get on out, and now Spoopy will actually be the casualty. The Frozen Tomb will only pop the Skarl, but the Slicing Maelstrom does the rest of the work for War Gloves. Finds that Spectre of Ice there as, oh my goodness, Overrush! The ADC versus ADC violence down the bot lane will find it over Jiraxel, so in multiple ways a win for Rising Tide. They go 2 for 2, I do believe, but they get the plate money, they got the demolish, so they really did a number on that mid lane tier 1. They will expand their gold lead, Kev. They are up about 4,000 gold right now.
Yeah, and Overrush is just continuing to go insane on that bot side. I'm going to pick up the Vampiric Scepter. I'm surprised didn't finish Boots there instead, but going to opt towards that one and just continue. I think, I mean, we just saw them win a 1v2, so just continue to snowball on this misfortune. Like I was saying, this objective control going to be pretty strong. Spoopy Lance does have a lot of mobility to get into the pit if needed.
Yeah, his pink is going to get cleared out though, so he's not going to have a great deal of vision to try and get in for the steal, and it's just going to go in before he can do anything. Big B, very brave, moving forward to take that cone, prevent any chance of Spoopy coming forward, doing his job, putting his body on the line as the support. Rising Tide get their second Drake here. They're just hoovering up everything on the map, Kev.
Yeah, it just has not gone the way of Gecko Hots really at any point in this game. A lot of inactivity, it really seems like, coming through. Like, you pick the Jarvan, you pick the Tristana. The only place they've really been able to get much done has been in this mid lane with that combo that we've seen time and time again come through in the Lissandra and the J4. But still haven't really been proactive a lot, and even in these places where they are losing gold, they are just continuing to just hemorrhage money over to the side of Rising Tide Typhoon.
Yeah, it's a bad look for the Geckos thus far in the game. They've answered back a couple of times, but mostly playing reactive. Acid Coconut really leading the charge for them and trying to keep them relevant. Spoopy's been putting all that attention towards the mid lane, punishing Gerbs, who's been positioning a little bit less than ideally on the Heimerdinger. Just because you have the capability to kite out around your turrets and try and outplay 1v2s doesn't mean you should be putting yourself in that situation over and over again, as Wargloves can't prevent Boulder from stealing the blue, but he might get punished for it anyways. He pops the ultimate to try and get into the Hex Gate. There is the lockdown. However, the CC chain off the Slicing Maelstrom means that down he goes. Warglove's gonna pick it up. Both of these solo laners now for Geckos doing pretty well, but in the meanwhile, it is traded for the first turret of the game. Rising Tide, even when they lose an inch, they take a mile.
Yeah, it is though. Overrush still on this bot side. Just clearing waves, really. Pretty good CS per minute as well, 146. Going to be higher than 7 CS a minute, which is really like the best I think you can expect as a minimum from these gold players. Doing a phenomenal job of CSing, I think. Don't want to undersell how important that is, especially in a role like AD carry when your support is roaming so heavily.
Yeah, it's a big disadvantage to put yourself at, but to play through it gracefully just expands the capability of your team to continue to snowball those leads, like you say, and it just gives you so much room to play these engages so strongly and put more pressure down as another turret going to go in. Here comes the flash. Big B will be the sacrificial lamb. Speaking of that support, putting themselves on the line, going to find the stun, although that's going to be the Cataclysm onto Overrush, who's forced to use the bolt time to try and escort some sort of exit for themselves, but the lockdown is never ending. It's unceasing. It is incessant onto the AD carries. This is the swing back Geckos was looking for. Now Boulder is the one at the mercy of the crowd control. Spoopy Lance going to put that lance through the heart of the Yordle Conqueror. That's going to be Geckos finally finding a big swing, going up in gold, going up in kills.
Yeah, and a good job, I think, by both parties there. Big B almost got Boulder and Gerbs out, but the J4 going to go forward as we do get a little bit of a replay here, it looks like.
Perhaps so. We appear to have lost our feet. It looks like the stream is still live, so that's good.
Oh.
I can't see anything though,
Yeah.
Kev, so that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it looks like we are getting back into the live game. A bit of unfortunate
Technical difficulty.
issues.
It wouldn't be VAS if we didn't get some tech difficulties here, but we're back. We're ready to go. It's just in time for a Rift Herald take as well here, Kev. And for the first time, Gecko's on the front foot. They're here first. They're setting up. And this is why in draft I said I had some faith in Geckos to take a game in this series because their comp, we just saw what it could do down in that bot lane skirmish. They have so much lockdown. They have so much wombo, but if they're pinched, it could be an ugly situation. They're surrounded on all sides. Big B starting with the Magnet Storm, gets stunned up. In return, the crash down over sets up the perfect Curse the Sad Mummy as War Gloves connects on nothing with that slicing Maelstrom. Acid Coconut in the double stasis is just going to be a fish in a barrel. They do trade back one. Do Geckos on the other side. Jiraxel's so late. However, they're navigating around the charge from AFK Boulder. It was well done, but Spoopy Lance stuck in the pit trying to find the steal, but they smartly waited to finish off that. Rift Herald did Rising Tide. They are going back to the dominant position they were in earlier. They shake off that one little hiccup, Kev. They win decisively, and they take Shirley here.
Yeah, that was just, I think, a little bit too over-aggressive by the Gecko Hawks. Call looked a little separated as we saw War Gloves and Spoopy Lance go super hard onto Overrush there. They were able to pick up the kill, but on the other side, it was the rest of their team kind of just getting destroyed by that Curse of the Sad Mummy, as that is going to need Dragon Soul Point as well for RTT here. One step forward, two steps back, it seems thus far for Gecko Hawks.
Yeah, definitely so, although the steps most definitely, as you point out, cumulatively backwards, as we see the gold lead back to about the widest it's been all game, which is that 4.5K mark for Rising Tide. The objective bounties now being activated on the map for Gecko Hawks here. They can try and get one of these tier 1s if they can access any of them. Going to be a way to get some gold back in their pockets, but with the free stats from the Drakes, with the wombo combo capability that Rising Tide has, it's going to be so hard to play around. Kled can get to you on a side lane, lickety-split. If you are trying to leverage the objective bounty on one of these tier 1s, then you're going to be caught out in a long lane. It's just a very scary look for the Gecko Hawks here. Rising Tide definitely coasting as we hit this 20-minute mark.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, you know, the charge from Kled is almost like having a second teleport. So even though they're down, there's a TP advantage for War Gloves here. I think that it kind of doesn't matter because you can be there almost as quick. The charge doesn't cover the full map, but it is half the map, so it is pretty easy to roam on the Kled to these team fights if absolutely necessary, of course. We are going to see, I think, here a bit of a Baron dance from both teams. But Rising Tide being the team in the ascendancy at the moment, I expect them to have a little easier time setting up for this one.
Yeah, and it's so hard for Gecko Hawks to approach because doing a little economic check-in gets Swag Money, who's really accelerated on the 2 items already, going to repel so much of Jiraxel's damage, and that's really your biggest damage threat on the side of Gecko Hawks as we go later and later. Spoopy Lance turning more into that pure tank and less from the fighter role the later the game goes on. So going to be hard as we see Calico caught out of position. That's how it goes over and over again here, Kev, at all levels of play. It's always the support who has to put themselves in danger to try and get that advanced vision. It results in a flash. That's a big engage tool gone. Rising Tide know it, and they turn to start the Purple Worm.
Yeah, and they take this pretty quick with the Heimerdinger. We'll see if Spoopy Lance can get in and maybe see if they can get something done. They definitely know that it's going on now, but I think it's going to go over before they can get there.
Yeah, they might be able to stop the backs, but I don't know if they can win the fight. The Nature's Wrath going to find multiple members. Spoopy Lance already so low, however, but that's the great slicing Maelstrom from War Gloves. So much better than last time around, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough as Gerbs already picks up the double. War Gloves left isolated on his own, and Jiraxel trying to cut through this tanky boy, trying to cut through the beef, but he's going to not be able to answer on to the opposing mid laner. Gerbs, however, on the flank, on the hook, coming around. Jiraxel trying to kite that, doing quite a good job of it as well. With this Kraken Slayer, the accelerated auto is going to be crazy. Waits for that Hail Blaze reset to come on in, so here comes the burst combo. The nice flash away from the skill shot, but it won't be enough! Cut down in the midst of the explosive jump means that Gerbs goes up big time. Meanwhile, they won a 4v5 while Boulder's split pushing into the base, Kev!
Yeah, luckily the death timers aren't too long, so they are going to be able to come up and prevent the inhibitor from going down. But RTT there, you know, you get the Baron, you lose a couple members, but overall I think they kind of just hit them with their wallets there.
Yeah, absolutely. They knew they could force, right? Because they had that advantage to go on. And it stinks because GHK didn't play it awful. We saw Wargloves get a huge slicing Maelstrom, but he's so behind. And it's just the problem of this comp. Yes, it's easy to execute. Yes, you have a whole lot of wombo capability, but from behind, it's just not very effective.
Yeah, and on top of that, RTT did a good job at drafting a multi-threat comp. GHK's comp is absolutely insane at locking down one member. As they
do lock down Overrush, just like you point out, and they're going to actually fall in the face of the bullet time. Are you kidding me? He was so low, but he just wouldn't go down. Big B keeping him safe, keeping him peeled, not allowing that bullet time to be interrupted. Blasted in the face or the mid-jungle of GHK, and that sort of feels like the coup de grace here, Kev, as Rising Tide up 10k, unperturbed even when their carries get isolated.
Yeah, as we see a fight forced here, it's going to go in the same way. Overrush shows up, autos a couple times, takes the Nexus, takes some lives, and this might just be the push here.
It very well could be, Kev. We see the Baron on 2 waves and it's exposed inhibitor in the 3rd lane as well, so they can just bring to dust the entirety of this base here of the GHK. We see 1 inhib fall, Overrush cutting through that. They don't really have a DPS carry though. Do Rising Tide, not a traditional one. Misfortune attacks pretty slow even with this crit attack speed build as Acid Coconut. Forced to get on out of there with the Frozen Thrall, and here comes Swag Money Boy. He's so tanky, doesn't matter. He can go so aggressive. And Rising Tide gonna play this one standard, gonna play this one to the book, the Korean style, play for all the mini advantages. They've run out of Baron, but they do still have a wave here to hit this 3rd inhib. And now it is the endless stream of attacking minions moving through, double waves in all 3 lanes. Rising Tide can back, they can get their soul, and then they can end at their leisure.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely the right macro play here. You're going to take all the inhibitors, you're going to back off, you're going to take your Dragon Soul, Hextech Soul, going to be pretty nice. I don't think necessarily the best thing they could possibly have. Spoopy Lance, though, is going to look to contest, absolutely does have to, I think. They want a chance at winning this game.
Yeah, and it gets so hard to shut down Overrush now with that QSS tax pay. The Spoopy Lance looking for the Desperation Steal, but just can't find it. Can't do anything at all. You're not even going to be able to lock down this carry now as the TP coming in. Jiraxel has to get the hell out of there. Not very quick. Boulder, though, not even concerned with running down this Tristana, just going to push the wave. Knows that the Nexus is but a folly, but a mere thing to be collected in the face of his wrath. This Kled will continue to charge forward with the team. Wargloves and the gang trying desperately to clear out these waves, but they're incessant, Kev. They're unending. You can clear out one, but they'll just keep marching on in. They don't even have Rush do the side of Rising Tide. It's coming on in with that Hexgate will arrive shortly, and that should spell the end of things.
Yeah, and those 2 double super mini waves are going to sync up there, are going to get a lot of damage onto the tower as the 3rd one crashes. Coconut is going to look for something.
It was the last-ditch defense, but it just doesn't land, it just doesn't stick, it just doesn't matter. Wargloves can't get onto his target. He is cut down, he is felled in his prime. He is absolutely eliminated as this Nexus is an easy target. Rising Tide showing that they might be a first seed by the likes of technicality, but they are also a first seed by the likes of play. They come on in as we're right on the analyst desk. Oh my goodness gracious, forgive me for sitting down. My feet do get tired at my standing desk here. Let me come into frame and commentate as I try and align myself and figure out what the heck is happening. But yeah, that was kind of the game 1 we expected here, Kev.
Yeah, I mean, Rising Tide, like you said, I mean, they were a first seed because of a technicality, but they beat every other team in their group besides Golden Providence, who bailed out. And Golden Providence, on top of that, were basically RPG from last split, or finalists from last split. So to lose 1 game in the split, or 1 series in the split, which I think went to 3 games, if my match history check did go correctly. I mean, Rising Tide, they showed up, they did what they knew they had to do, even in a draft situation that maybe didn't necessarily favor them. I still am of the opinion that these drafts are somewhat even, but able to snowball early and really prevent, I think, that bot lane synergy in the Maokai and Tristana from getting. I mean, I think there's one thing you can say about that game, which is overrush and just period exclamation point.
I mean, it was an exclamation point for sure coming through. I couldn't think of a better way to get that going as it's not Melly G, our MVP from last night over there for the Gecko Hawks. It's not a 2-0. Our post-game screen needs a bit of adjusting, which we will manage between now and the next game. So we'll throw it to a quick break to do that, but just a quick check-in. 16k damage for Gerbs, not what I would have expected, but Overrush right behind him. No surprise, big carry performance in that game. But yeah, let's go on over to a break. Defoe is actually in chat, probably going to be happy to see their name on screen, as this is quite an old post-game graphic that we're working off of. But until we do return, stick around. We got at least one more game here in this series tonight, and you're not going to want to miss it. We will return in just a moment. Stay tuned. Here we are, everybody. It is time for draft for game number 2. I am once again Infinite Dodge. I haven't become anybody else in the last few minutes. I am once again joined by Kevbo. We're flying through these Phase 1 bans. In game 1 was RTT, bringing out a bit of a diffy in the biffy, Kev. They found some nice plays to get ahead early and never really looked back. And the bans are looking pretty similar, still very solo lane and jungle focused. So the misfortune is one big adjustment though for GHK, though. They felt Overrush's wrath, especially as the game went on. Don't want to give them that pick again. And they're really deciding on what this first pick is going to be. They faltered with the Maokai in game 1, but they're going for it again. Hopefully this time not in the support role.
Yeah, we'll see. RTT, I think, answered very quickly with the Rel in the last game.
Yeah.
Like I said, in my research, Maokai was really only a support pick for the side of GHK here. I don't know if it's something that they do flex. Of course, with how prevalent Maokai is, I wouldn't be surprised to see him play either jungle or bot lane. But we are going to get the Kai'Sa instead, which I think is probably just... I mean, Misfortune is very strong, but the amount of things you can pair up support-wise with Kai'Sa as well is also pretty immaculate, as we are going to see the Rel come through once again.
I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Big B obviously comfortable on the pick. Synergizes well with Kai'Sa, sets up lots of ways for you to proc your Killer Instinct, get on in there, and it's just a bit of an easy choice for Rising Tide, we'll say, to run it back here. Now it's up to GHK to make some adjustments. Last time around, they didn't actually select their AD carry until the second phase, and that will confirm for us, though, that Maokai is not going to be going into the support role. Instead, it's going to be Ashe or Nada. This is a super utility-heavy scaling, attack speed type lane where you're going to be doing tons of DPS later on, something they were sort of missing in the later game stages last time around. Set going to be the response, though. Again, technically a flex, although I feel pretty comfortable calling this one going up top for Boulder here, Kev.
I think you're gonna be wrong.
Really?
Because Set is something that they play in jungle a lot over at RTT. Swag Money Boy are really liking that one at the moment.
Rising Tide teams and top laners as junglers is actually sort of a theme I've seen before. Rising Tide S-Eagles, the other gold plat team in their organization, used to always play Mordekaiser jungle. They were the first people I saw like do that all the time before it sort of became more common, right way back in the beginning of the year, like January, February. So there's definitely precedent for it. Set jungle, sure.
Yeah, and going to get rid of the Heimerdinger for Gerbs. Be interested to see what they do rotate to. I know Azir is something that is in their pool that is a pretty good option. Also Silas, I think, is still up as well. Could be a good choice here. Just lock in the Silas and leave that flex opportunity there.
Yeah, I mean, you have 3 really great ultimates to steal as Silas, but they're thinking about the Victor, and it will be a pretty instantaneous lock on the Victor now. I mean, yeah, Victor's really strong. We saw it actually win every game it was played in VRD semis, or rather quarters last night, so definitely has immediate past success to look back on and say, yeah, this sets a good precedent. Go for the Victor. Obviously scales well, team fights well, just a little bit easy to pick out early in lane, but Gerbs, he's saying things aren't going to be like last time. It's not going to be a repeat of the Heimerdinger incident, as that is Warwick picked up for GHK. I'm going to be honest with you, Kepo, I don't think I've ever cast a Warwick game.
I have casted, unfortunately, Warwick games. Shout out to back when I was on a college team and solo casted. We had a player that was a Rengar OTP that ended up playing Warwick every game because Rengar got banned every game. But the Syndra actually going to come out here. I like this a lot for GHK.
Yeah, this feels very, like, going back to comfort, I think you did point out in the pre-show that Coconut has been playing a lot of the Syndra. It's a very strong pick right now, just freshly reworked, and you know what Riot likes to do with the reworks and the new champions. They like to leave that power pretty far up when they come out so that people play them and are aware of them and want to keep playing them, and then they nerf them down more to a balanced state. So Syndra really, really strong right now, but Boulder saying, once again, the second game in a row he gets the counter pick, I'm not afraid of War Gloves. I'm going to try and take it to him here. Fiora going to do pretty well into the tank. Going to be able to get those vitals procced pretty easily. Can turn around the CC with the riposts as well. So a throwing down of the gauntlet on this counter pick here.
I was going to say, the grand challenge has been issued by the Fiora here.
Indeed it has. And Blackout, to answer your question, was game 1 close or a blowout? Game 1 was close until it wasn't. It was, Gecko Hawks found some skirmish. They basically lost every fight, but it was like 2 for 3, 2 for 3, 3 for 3, 1 for 2. So, like, they were in it for a while, but Rising Tide kept building up Drakes. And then at the first Rift Herald, or the second Rift Herald fight, is basically when things broke open for Rising Tide, and they never really looked back. So you could kind of tell that Rising Tide was on the front foot for most of the game. Gecko Hawks had one really good skirmish in bot lane where they did manage to actually get evened up in gold again for a little while, but Rising Tide was basically in the driver's seat the whole way, and the last 5 minutes or so was really Rising Tide favored as we see Team Ambition coming on through with the raid. Welcome, guys. We are going into game 2 of our round of 16 matchup here between Rising Tide and Gecko Hawks. Rising Tide taking the first game pretty handily. Going to be looking for the bounce back here are Gecko Hawks. And Kev, I will ask you as we do get ready to move to the spectator delay what your prediction is. Do Gecko Hawks have the pieces to find that bounce back, take us to a decisive game 3, or will this be the quick 2-0 angle for the Typhoon?
I think we're going to see something very similar to game 1. I think mid lane is going to be a very strong point for Gecko Hawks here. I'm interested to see how the set jungle does end up working out because it's not something that we have seen a lot of.
No.
But if they're allowed to scale really at all, Rising Tide just has a team that is going to just beach towers so easily. I mean, Fiora and Set are two of the best champs at taking towers in the game. On their own. So the ability to 1-3-1 here for Rising Tide is kind of immaculate. I want to see
a funny way of putting it. I like that.
Yeah, I want to see are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Yes, you know what? That makes sense. I like it a lot better than the other way around. We have Warwick top and Maokai jungle coming through. Wargloves saying, you're trying to counterpick me with a champion that hard wins lane is this fighter with all this sustain that loves the extended 1v1 brawls. I'm going to pick, granted, a cheesy, albeit not very standard, but basically playing the biggest bully in terms of the 1v1 melee fighter matchups in the top lane. The Warwick top, I think, at a higher level of play is better than the Warwick jungle. I think Maokai jungle is absolutely busted right now, offers a lot more in ganks than the Warwick does, so I really like this switch up. I think this is going to be a very interesting game. So you basically went with Rising Tide, right? You said this is going to be more of a repeat of game 1. It's going to be kind of back and forth in the early.
It does make things, I think, a little bit different because I don't think Bowler is going to win quite as hard in the 1v1 top side. However, I think I'm still going to go with Rising Tide on this. I think the set is going to surprise both us and Gecko Hawks and probably going to end up swinging the early game in their favor.
Very well possible. We will discuss the intricacies of set jungle when we do get into game because I do have some thoughts on it. But my quick prediction before we do throw it to a break, I think this is going to be an absolute fiesta. I think these comps both scream fiesta to me. Lots of fighting. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than game 1, but I am ultimately going to go for the 2-0 for Rising Tide as well. I think they'll pull through in the end with a little bit of better decision making like we did see in game 1. But I'm not clairvoyant. I can't see the future. I'm no oracle. We will just have to wait and see what happens, and we shall in just a second here. We're going to throw it to the spectator delay break, but we'll be back for game 2 right after this. You don't want to miss it. Don't go anywhere. Stick around. Are you ready for League of Legends action? I sure am. I'm excited to see the Warwick top with the barrier. True Chad Warwick tops go barrier ignite, but the barrier is definitely part of the tech either way. Kevbo, are you excited for the cheese that we are about to witness? As that's not what you do. You don't do that 5-man in competitive. You only do that in solo queue because you always do a 5 points and you see that one coming. You go through tribe rush in competitive. Nobody ever guards for that one well.
Yeah. Unfortunate that the cheese didn't come out. I do think that possibly RTT still win that anyways if Set decides to go for the W first.
Yeah?
However, does not end up coming through, like you said, because of the 5 points, but I do want to briefly shout out to Gecko Hawks here. Their team skin synergy is absolutely on point. Everyone is rocking a blue skin.
Yeah, like blue and black, dark, cool colors, good stuff.
Which I've never seen that level of synergy in the VAS, so still able to, I think, have fun here, which is absolutely what we love to see. Both junglers yet again here going to start on the bot side. I am a little bit surprised to see Set decide to start bot side, because I would imagine that this bot lane is something that they want to look to gank early. And on top of that, I think Set is probably going to do better with an early red buff than with an early blue buff. However, we will have to keep track of that one. And the clear should be, I think, probably a little bit slower than the Maokai as well.
I would have to assume so. Maokai has gotten some jungle-specific clear buffs recently that make him pretty decent. Set on, in the meanwhile, not really so much. There's a reason Set jungle isn't as common as it was in Season 9, around the time of Set's release, or maybe that was Season 10. All these 200 years champs to me blend together in memory. But yeah, Set jungle. Let's talk about it, because I have feelings about it, assuming Big B and Overrush don't move forward too aggressively. Looks like they will just zone away from the CS. I feel like Set doesn't offer too much in the jungle right now. He can't really clear with the best of them. His CC is very telegraphed and depends on being right on top of you to activate. And junglers just don't scale as hard as they did previously before the camp changes in terms of XP, and that's leaving Set behind where he would be in a top or mid lane role, and I just feel like it doesn't offer very much.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting as Boulder is going to walk right into the Maokai here.
Yeah, it has the red buff onto Boulder as well, but it's a 2v2. That's the flash actually coming out from Swagmighty to get on top of him, and that's what you have to do. You have to commit your mobility summoner spell to get your CC down and get on top of people. Does trade with his opposing member 1-for-1 at the very least, and Warwick abandoned the wave there, did War Gloves to go and try and join that fight, so overall, pretty advantageous for Rising Tide.
Yeah, I mean, it did end up working out a little bit there. I do want to say, however, that I think that Swagmoney is trolling a little bit by not taking Inspiration second and taking Hex Flash here. Yeah. I mean, that makes absolutely zero sense to me, because a lot, like you said, a lot of your gank potential is going to be coming through that face breaker by getting close to someone. So not going to even be able to do that should mean that it is even harder for them to get gank set up now. Set, however, is going for a full clear Guttle Crab as well. So it looks like both junglers going to get everything, as War Gloves is just going to die.
Yeah, or at least be forced to flash. The Vital spawn, not the best for Boulder, means he can't finish that up. The front Vital, maybe he does, but the punish is still going to be big either way. Swag Money using that Haymaker to help push out means this wave crashes, and War Gloves is in danger of either getting dove or having to miss some of these CS because it is so hard to farm them under turret as the Warwick. We'll see what he does do to try and catch up. If he CS's perfectly, will only be 2 or 3 CS behind. He's actually doing a pretty good job of priming these right now. This is gameplay. This is exciting. Look at War Gloves doing the CSing perfectly under turret there. Is that War Gloves or Faker? I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously is something that they pulled out as a bit of a surprise pick. Big B going to go be annoying. Very Hillisang of them there.
I love it.
I think he's going to do it again.
Oh my god. That is straight Hillisang, and I absolutely adore it. as Calico can't even do anything to punish there. And Kevbo, I see a green sword in the inventory of Boulder. Normally, I'd be pretty opposed to it. We'll check in a little while and see how it's doing after some time for it to be applied in these 1v1s, but I think this is one of the few lanes where an early executioner's probably not the worst.
Yeah, I honestly wouldn't hate a chainsword rush here from Boulder as
very gold efficient.
I wanted to spot this out as the ult going to miss its mark there from Gerbs, but should be able to get the push with the jungler being here.
And actually, it evens out pretty perfectly there. Coconut using that that W just say, zoop, let me take this cannon and claim it. Will be getting some stacks for themselves, but that's sort of the problem with Set Jungle there, right? Showed up to try and do something with the Chaos Storm down, but no flash, no Hex Flash makes it pretty hard. There's a reason why in the past when Set support and Set Jungle were meta, when Set was a common flex, we really saw Nimbus Cloak and Hex Flash a lot. We would see like a Phase Rush set, or we would see an Unleashed Spellbook set so you get access to both of those trees. Now it is going to be Rising Tide onto the Drake, and unlike last game, it will be Gecko in a place to actually contest it. That's a beautiful knockback into the Wombo to find Overrush for the first blood. Maokai Jungle, so much stronger than Maokai support as Big B trying to even it up. He comes forward to get that Ignite down, but he's just offering himself up. A horse to the slaughter goes the Rel, as that is a 3-man wipe coming through for the side of Gecko Hawks. They'll get the Drake as well for the first time in this series, Kev. They have a big advantage.
Yeah, that was just way too over-aggressive from the side of Rising Tide, as we're going to throw it to...
Oh. That was close. That was close for Wargloves. I thought he was in a bad spot. My apologies. As yes, we are going to go ahead and take a look at the replay here. Kev, break it down for us.
Yeah, so really, we see the power of the Maokai here. Goes forward, gets 3-man knock away, applies the red buff, and picks up the kill. And really, that's what it came down to. Big B with a really aggressive flash at the end there, too. I think maybe should have just backed off. But that's the support play. You really want to... try and step forward and make that flashy setup, see if GURPS can get anything done. But really, if anything, that replay demonstrates just the power of this Maokai here. You know, like I said, just jump forward and 3-man CC in a choke like that just absolutely shreds them.
Yeah, it's pretty wild how much different the script has been in this game 2 for Gecko Hawks than in game number 1. They have an advantage to play with for the very first time, although they are still down CS in the side lanes. Acid Coconut, however, doing pretty good with the freshly reworked Syndra to put himself in a strong position. The kills as well, going to mean that gold is squarely in their favor, but Warglove's not having a good time here. Decided on the 200 IQ Warwick flex up to the top lane to try and deal with this Fiora, but not really being super successful, so it looks like they might just refocus and try and take a neutral objective instead, both hovering around this Rift Herald as Swag Money Boy is backing off.
Yeah. It is a little bit interesting that RTT is not really contesting this Rift Herald, especially with the power that Fiora has, but a good job by Wargloves to set up the push is going to mean it is much harder for them. Should be going over pretty freely, as Gerbs maybe going to look for something.
Finds out just a little too late, gets the bad news on the tail end there that the Rift Herald is being taken, and you know what? Rising Tide, pretty smart not to contest, right? They lost the last team fight because the team fighting prowess of Gecko Hawks is just at a higher point right now. Instead, Boulder just deciding to, you know, keep a freeze in a lane he's already pretty hard winning, already ahead in CS, and that is just going to generate even more of a lead for him. Has that TP ready as well, so it can take a reset on any timer they want, come back and 1v1 this Warwick, who looks to be going for that first item Bork, but will be Coconut roaming towards the bot lane here, camping this Tri-Brush, see if he can find something.
Yeah, they really do need to get this advantage for the Syndra pushed out into the other lanes at this point. Because we already see, you know, over 20 CS. Nice CC combo going to land.
Holy smokes, the handshake in the midst of the crash down means that Rel's not going anywhere. That horsey got lassoed. The CC chain start to finish there, starting off with the Scatter of the Week into the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, the perfect, pixel-perfect follow-up going to be coming through from the side of Gecko Hawks, and they are looking like a whole different team this time around. Swag Money Boy looking to do something to cut off their momentum here, looking for a cheeky play behind Coconut. Doesn't have the Hex Flash, but can maybe use that now fully restored Flash cooldown to, you know, approach from behind and ult Coconut forward, but instead going to abandon the play. As I think we will have a little replay here, Kev, if you want to break it down in granular detail what happened for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's just good setup and a bit of disrespect here. The Scatter of the Week from full range. Like, just this, like you said, the CC combo is just absolutely immaculate there. Just layered it so well. A good few seconds of just not being able to move is never fun for anyone. More Gloves going to take an aggressive critic here.
Yeah, he does actually have that ultimate as well to sustain up, but here comes the showstopper into the Haymaker. Actually does very little damage there, because that W does scale with a D, just going for the Bomby Cinder Rush on the set. Not really going to be super effective in terms of getting that damage out. I mean, you can store a bit more damage, so it does a bit more damage, but yeah, nothing really crazy going on, as Swag Money, you know, he came into a place where AFK was in a good spot, very far ahead, but they're continuing to pick the fight as Boulder going to riposte. Basically nothing there. The Haymaker once again doing nothing at all. Spoopy Lance goes on the killing spree, and now Set is pinched in a bad spot. Will be regenning pretty hard with that passive, but if the Sapling can stop him, it's going to be really spooky. Wargloves has his blood trail as well. Not going to go for the dive, however, because they have the Herald. Why would they? Back not going to get canceled almost. Could have been the repeat off the Saplings, but here comes the cash infusion. Gecko Hawk going to bail out their top laner instead.
Yeah, and they really did need to start getting some gold in their side laners' pockets. Fiora, even with that death and losing some minions to the tower there, is still up, you know, almost 50 CS on this Warwick here. So that is really what I'm scared for the side of Gecko Hawks. While they keep getting these kills and they have, you know, a nice gold lead for themselves, it's really isolated, that gold lead at this moment.
Yeah, thankfully, however, Fiora basically pinned in that side lane. Not the most effective team fighter, can't come down and help for this Drake, so it looks like it's going to go over without any contest whatsoever. And now it will just be the Gecko Hawks running on out. They scatter. They will not be intercepted. They will not be interrupted. They will just take the objective for themselves. Boulder going to trade it back for some turret plates as well. So if we just toggle on over to the gold view, about a 50 CS lead. The plates as well will equal a 1,000 gold lead over the Warwick, but that's being matched in kind by the rest of the lanes here, who give a 1.2 lead overall to the Hawks. So Boulder not really having too much impact right now.
Yeah. I think the scariest part about the Fiora and being at this point in the game, though, is who really answers the Fiora. If you don't bring multiple members, I think you are just going to struggle. And the early Executioner's paying dividends against the Warwick, who already has healing built into the kit, but also going for a very early Vampiric Scepter, going to get even more value out of that.
That's the first time in history, Kevbo, that somebody has hovered a healing cut item at 13 minutes and it's been useful. So good for Boulder picking that up, and like you pointed out earlier, can go into the Kempuck Chainsword as well, which is a really good item.
Yeah, we'll see what they do end up doing. I see that Shane, so maybe going to not go immediately for the Chainsword. Yeah, as we see, instead going to pick up the Divine Sunderer there. Going to be pretty good into both the Warwick and the Maokai, I'd imagine. Coming back to the Swag Money Boy, not taking Hex Splash, I think, is actually just troll. There are so many things that you could run that would be better, and I'm going to point directly to Blitzcrank. You know, I myself am
How does it always come back to Blitzcrank?
No, but this is the thing. If you're playing a jungler that is off meta, that really wants to gank, one, you need to take Hex Flash, because you need to get deep spaces. And even if you Hex Flash or flash over a wall, most of the time, you're going to end up forcing probably a flash yourself. Right? Even if you don't have the abilities, you're going to force the flash.
As Wargloves Ooh, Spooky Scary does get out of the range of that Chaos Storm, however, and the rest of the team is here to back them up. That's the nice AoE succession of Teamfight Ultimates coming through, but now they're out of tools. Our Gecko Hawks, they didn't really follow up on the use of that Nature's Grasp, on the use of that takeover, but it will be the Enchanted Crystal Arrow to find the Fiora, who's going to get suppressed, who's going to get eaten up, who's going to get mauled by War Gloves as Gecko Hawks hard winning right now. Maybe we gave Rising Tide a little bit of too much credit. This Swoopy Lance took the long journey, does manage to escape despite going a bit deep there, and now it'll be another objective in the pocket of the Gecko Hawks. 2 Drakes and now a Rift Herald as well. They are feeling themselves in this game too. It's a complete reversal of what we saw last time.
As we are going to jump into a replay here, it just seems like yet again Big B trying to overforce an Enchanted Crystal Arrow from downtown though, picking out the Fiora. Again, the CC chains from the side of Gecko Hawks have just been absolutely on point throughout this game too. Able to follow up on pretty much everything that has been set up, especially by the Enchanted Crystal Arrow we saw in the previous fight. As well as that one, even from downtown, landing onto a member, and the real utility power of the Ash is coming in clutch for it.
Yeah, it's wild how different this one feels this time around. The tools in Gecko Hawk's pocket definitely powerful, but we do see Jiraxel being felled here at the beginning of our go back into live. Didn't quite see how that happened, but Overrush and Big B still a very powerful bot lane duo. Did hard smack in game 1, so not surprising they find something, but it will be answered in kind, as that's another throwback to game 1 there. Kevbo Gerbs just being a little bit out of position.
Yep, Boulder is doing the Fiora thing though on the side lane, getting the split push through. And to come back to my points, okay? We're gonna get there eventually. Jugglers that are really gank heavy that don't have a way to engage on their own. So like J4 and Maokai, you can flag and drag, or you can W onto someone from the lane. Hex Flash over the wall is going to be super important just to catch your opponent off guard, because otherwise, like you said at the beginning of the game, it's so telegraphed. You literally just walk at them, right?
Yep.
And with set, you don't really have a great speed up either. Like, you can press Q and you'll run a little bit faster, but it doesn't mean that much in the long stretch of things. So what I'd like to see Swag Money do here is instead go it literally is exactly how I play Blitzcrank jungle, except for you build AD instead of AP. So you rush the Bammies, but you take lethal tempo.
Ooh. Oh my goodness gracious, I hate to cut you off because I do like the Blitzcrank jungle talk, because FK Boulder's actually going to heal quite a bit, but it still won't matter. Swoopy Lance lives through that one. They slack Overrush in the face with the Enchantress Arrow as he tries to dive in and turn the fight, and now it will be utter disaster for Rising Tide. They are getting ruffle stomped in game 2. It has been all Gecko Hawks all the way here. They go on to Soul Point. They get the clean ace, only losing their support. They're up 5k. They are up 14-2 right now. And you know what, Kev? I think we can pin a lot of it on the ineffectiveness of this set jungle.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it. You didn't get anything done because you don't have Hex Flash. You're not able to get on top of people. And also, like, the tech that I think is underrated but super helpful on these kind of junglers is Futures Market. You can rush an early Bammies to increase your wave clear, and then instead of finishing the Frostfire, you can actually go directly into an AD item. As yet again we get into this team fight, and Boulder really did try to put in a lot of work there, but you know, even with the CC chain, as we saw on the top side of the Rel and the set, they just don't have damage, right? You've fallen so far behind. The Fiora is really the only champion that really has a great chance of getting a lot of damage. At this point, I think, though, you just have to win 3-1, right?
Yeah, you got to try and do something because the straight 5v5s are not going your way. You need Fiora split pushing. The problem is in these fights that Jiraxel's target focus was so good, just kept the Fiora from being able to access anybody because he was kiting, spacing very well, getting those slows down on the boulder. You can't riposte the slows. Only the hard... I mean, you can, but then you're not really fixing any problem because you're still not moving. It's not like a hard CC, so... Things definitely dire for Rising Tide right now, but it's not unreachably bad for them, right? It's 5k at 20 minutes. That's a lot, but it's not insurmountable. They are going to have to find an uneven fight, sort of like Gecko Hawks did around that bot lane skirmish in the last game. They really want to find an avenue forward. Maybe try and attack Ashe again. Did just fall a little while back as Boulder's like trying to bait onto War Gloves here. Okay, as we toggle the vision, I was curious. I wasn't sure. Thank you, observers, for that, because I wasn't sure if War Gloves could see that Boulder was bound up to Big B. So I was like, this kind of seems like a bad bait, but no, Big B will continue going around with that binding on Boulder, trying to leverage their one strong point, who is still up in gold, but in the meanwhile, while they're hovering around, while they're wasting their time, Kevin with the Baron's just gonna go over.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely called them out there. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow, yet again, Swag Money Boy going to lose out on a lot there, down to half health. And you're set, but your tank's set, so you're really not going to be able to get too much work done. Boulder going to look for something here.
I mean, ultimately, this might be okay for Rising Tide, because they're going to get the Warwick here, you have to feel, unless he can sustain off of Big B. He actually can and get out with the ultimate. And look at Gecko Hawks, they've gotten back onto the Baron. They were stopped at first, and they only hit Set, who has that regen passive. Meanwhile, Coconut took some damage, so I thought Rising Tide could have won that exchange, but instead, they will just take the Baron. Well, Gecko Hawks, Coconut will just find the kill. Swag Money Boy, he shows up too late. He arrived to the party after closing time. I mean, the showstopper does nothing. He dies right in the middle of it. He takes a dive, and now that was a nice little a little dramatic pause, record scratch freeze frame there, but time will continue moving forward far faster than I think Rising Tide would like it to, Kev, because their base is next on the menu.
Yeah, we talked them up in the first game for their macro plays, and this game they're kind of just getting out macroed, right? You know, you got this Ashe that is setting up the plays as they're going to do it yet again here.
I mean, they just have so few tools to Rising Tide if they didn't get ahead in lane. Like, your only utility character is Rel, at least the only one who isn't super telegraphed and easy to play around like the Set. And they have so many tools to stop the Rel in the midst of her engages. We've seen it over and over again. The handshakes that scatter the weaks will mean Rel can do nothing as War Gloves doesn't even die because he has the bailout. He has the cash fund to keep him fighting as Gerb's desperately trying to kite it out, but it means nothing at all. Gecko Hawks making such a statement here in Game 2. They defaulted to comfort. They had some tricky flexes. They did everything they needed to, and they looked like such the better team here in Game number 2. As they're not done yet, War Gloves will follow into the fountain to try and find Overrush, who gets the consolation shutdown, but still, the defense is going to be pretty tough, although the death time is pretty short. The rest of the team actually wasting their time with these minions here, but I don't think it'll matter. They still have a clear focus on the Nexus, however. Overrush going to be the target of their eye for now, going to keep them off of that Nexus, going to give his team a chance to bounce back here. Spooky Lane's trying to heal up with that Nature's Grasp, but not going to do much as the Showstopper finally finds a big, beefy priority target, but look at that tree. Spooky Lane's trying to buy some time. It's a bit of a bump in the road. It's a bit of a hiccup for Gecko Hawks, but it will be Rising Tide finding the ace, keeping themselves afloat.
Yeah, they have to get onto this dragon right now, though. Spoopy Lance is dead for 28 seconds. They're sending some members there, but delaying this soul another 5 minutes should be absolutely phenomenal for them. It will be contested, I would imagine, by Jiraxel and War Gloves. We'll see what they want to do. There is a angle to possibly just walk into the base, exposing that.
This is going down slow. They have the plant. Here comes the arrow. It finds one. Warglove's coming in. He has no smite. He's not a jungle Warwick, but they're looking for something. Here comes Coconut off the TP as well, fresh in. They're trying to punish it and end off the back as Bigby is getting shredded by that Ranger's focus. Is now AFK Boulder in the midst of them. Finds the priority target, but now it's Warglove's onto him. They have the numbers advantage once again, however, as their members have hit the board, and it will just be an exchange of angry glances, but no real plunder taken either way. The Drake and the objective bounty that it entails go over to Rising Tide. They've cut this gold lead back down to a surmountable number, right? 7K is big, but it's not impossible. The biggest issue facing them right now, Kev, is their Nexus is naked and exposed.
Yeah. While you did manage to stave off, I think if they just 5-man and just walk at the Nexus, they're probably just going to end. Even just ignoring the members. But we've seen the 5v5s already, right? I would expect them to just end up winning a 5v5 scenario yet again. You know, Stupid Lance are really going forward for it.
Yeah, I mean, they're just doing exactly what you called for, right? They know that they win the 5v5. They said, okay, nice Dragon Bro. This time we're going to play it right. We're just going to hit the Nexus. We're not going to give you a chance to pull any sort of shenanigans, although maybe the egos are making them fight a little bit more, as AFK Boulder is 1v1ing Wargloves, but it doesn't really matter because this time they do it right. They do it by the book. They take the Nexus, and they take us to a third game here on the night. This series is going all the way. Rising Tide looking quite different in game number 2 than they did the first time around. We'll see if they can rectify things, get back on track for game 3, but all the ups in the world to Gecko Hawks. They bet on themselves. They went for what they were comfortable with. They retooled the draft, and they looked like a completely different team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a little bit of ego getting to RTT there in that second game. No matter your opponent, you still got to respect them. You still got to play well and draft well, and I think a lot of it really just comes down to the draft. The CC combos from Gecko Hawks in that second game, I mean, the only way that it gets worse for a single target CC is if you have Morgana mid instead of Syndra, I think.
That would have been pretty crazy, although that would be a bit more skill shot reliant, so maybe you dodge out on the thing, but...
At the same time, though, the single target CC and the target priority by the side of Gecko Hawks was absolutely insane. They still had a huge lead, RTT, in the side lanes, as we get a look at the damage graph and everything. But Boulder and Overrush, yet again, out-farming their opponents significantly in the early game. So, I'm not really sure what they need to change coming into this last game.
I have some thoughts on that, but we'll wait till we get to the desk. We are going to go to a quick break. Crow will come back, and we can sort of chat up the trajectory of this series so far, because this game 2 has been such a monkey wrench. It is, once again, Gecko Hawks taking game 2, bringing us to a game 3, so we are all tied up. Next, winner moves on to the quarterfinals. Loser goes home. You're not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned. We'll return in just a second.
Well, oh god, sorry, I was just huffing a little bit too much copium for Rising Tide because after an abysmal game number 2, and that's putting it PG, I guess. Hey, shout out, shout out to the Gecko Hawks for giving it the good old college try, bringing us to this all-important 3rd game. We talked about it at the beginning of the day. There was a slight chance that the Gecko Hawks could pull the upset and give Rising Tide their lowest finish in Victoris all year.
It's possible.
One game away from this. One game away from this.
I'm assuming we're not going to see another set jungle, which is really what I wanted to hammer home my point as, but draft has actually begun, so Crow, as quickly as you've joined us, unfortunately, you have to leave us.
Sounds like my dating life. Anyway, yeah, I'll see y'all on the other side. Have fun with this game number 3, babes.
Yeah. Alright, well, here we go. Draft looks the exact same as it did in the last draft.
Gecko Hawks back on blue again. Rising Tide Typhoon said, we'll take red side again. Like that, though, Jinx is going to be able to do a lot more than Kaisa, even if the Typhooners are in a bad state come the late game, especially with how much Overrush and Big B have been gapping in lane, even in game 2, where the rest of the map was not doing so well because of the team fight situation. I mean, really, I think last game was just a sad state of swag money, focusing the wrong areas. Going back on that Amumu that worked so well in game 1, assuming that's not going to be a support Amumu, which I don't see why it would be. That's exactly what the doctor ordered. But Hawks, they got a taste of the Wombo capability, potential. They're very happy to run back the Maokai Renata.
Yeah, I mean, it worked so well for them in the last game. But I think a great choice by RTT here to put swag money back on an actual tank and not set. Like you said, enough of game 2. I am
We're moving.
Disappointed. We're gonna move forward. Going to have the same first 3 from Gecko Hawks. The CC combo from them was very nice in the last game. Of course, even if you get rid of the Syndra in the second rotation of the bans, there are a lot of good options. RTT though, doing okay. Early Heimerdinger possibility going to come through from Gerbs here.
Feels like they're going back to their game 1 strats. It's basically, what's the opposite of a salty run back? A sweet run back? A sugary run back? Either way, it feels like both of these teams are just going back to what's worked. Gecko Hawks won game 2 with exactly these 3 picks. Rising Tide won game 1 with 2 of these 3 picks. And now Rising Tide is getting a little bit salty. They're saying, Coconut, Syndra's busted, and you've been playing it too much lately. We don't want to see you on that pick again. It's too powerful. Taking that one away. Gnar will continue to be that continuum of banning. I see him on your bed there looking so sad that he has been blacklisted from this game. Rest in peace, Gnar. But Yorick also going to be the takeaway from Warglove, so we might see him back on something a little bit out of character. The Warwick was a nice switch up for game number 2, but it actually didn't do good in lane. It actually got fisted by Victoris, so hopefully something back towards more like the Kennen angle, because that's going to be an Enchanter taken away from the Jinx here.
Yeah, I don't know why of all the Enchanters he chose to get rid of the Soraka, but RTT here, I think the Yorick didn't make it through, but I think Gecko Hawks can probably just play that Lissandra that they played in the previous game and it will do quite well. The Alistar angle instead, I like a lot. Definitely, I think, are better options into the Renata than the Alistar, but something that they can be comfortable on. Offers them some more CC that they were honestly kind of missing. Gecko Hawks, what do you want to see from them here?
You know, it's hard. I'd like to see Coconut on something that can go big from a carry perspective in this game, and Vex is actually a pretty good pick here. It's similar to Syndra. It's sort of like an artillery mage almost, so it does have that zone control in fights. It has CC. It has big burst damage. So with the Syndra being taken off the board, I really like this for Coconut. Basically stepping up and saying, you know, this has been banned the past few games. This time around, they had to respect my Syndra, so I'm going for something else I'm known for. really like this adaptation, and now it's up for that blind top lane for Gecko Hawks and Darius blind. Wow, that's spicy. I don't actually know what beats Darius in the counter. I play GP into Darius very happily, but GP banned away here from Gecko Hawks, so the Aatrox, this feels a little handshaky, this feels a little skill matchup-y to me, Kev.
Yeah, definitely in a good spot is Aatrox. I think Darius though a little bit easier to pilot as a champion. Like a lot of it is about auto resets and stacking up. The passive Aatrox a lot more skill shot based.
Yeah.
However, you know, you gotta have some faith in AFK Boulder here. Aatrox their second most played. So definitely something that they're comfortable with, and something that is strong in the meta and has done really well in that lane on their own. It's yet again, I think, going to be a lot about what Overrush can get done on the Jinx here.
Yeah, we'll see. Been the big carry threat for his team both of these games thus far, even when the rest of the team was getting smacked up and spanked around in game number 2. So on this scaling team fighting 80 carry, this hyper carry that's going to be able to output so much damage, as long as Rising Tide Typhoon's not in a situation like they were last time around where they were so behind by the 10-15 minute mark. I think they're going to be doing absolutely fine here in game number 3, looking to prevent the slide down the standings from continuing over the course of this Victoris split. Gonna want to stand strong, move their way on to quarterfinals here. And I do have to give them the edge, because even though I do like what Gecko Hawks has assembled for themselves here, we've seen what Rising Tide does when they're on even footing, when they have swag money on something that's a little bit more effective at influencing these side lanes and actually really snowballing them. We saw both of the side lanes get huge leads last game just through the CS that eventually fell apart because the team fighting wasn't really there. This time around, I think all of those issues have been addressed. I think Rising Tide should be in a really good spot. So I'm gonna give game 3 here to Rising Tide. I'm gonna give the series to Rising Tide. I'm just hoping for a close match. I want it to be exciting, Cat. Before we do throw it to break, what are your thoughts? Are you in agreement, or do you think I'm the dumbest pink-haired person on our desk tonight?
It's so hard to say. I think, yet again, these drafts have actually been pretty even, and I don't think it's necessarily because both teams have been drafting phenomenally. They seem very mediocre. Like, you have a lot of comfort picks, especially like things like the Vex and the Ashe that doesn't see too much, the Jinx even that doesn't see too much play. I think simply because of what we've seen Boulder and Overrush be able to do with these champions that are really good at team fighting and really are things that can take over the game on their own, I expect RTT to win. Gecko Hawks has a good angle, though, with that synergy that they had in the last game.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they can make use of it, if they can ride the momentum, if they can keep the confidence and complete the upset. The 4th seed coming through from Group D against the 1st seed from Group C. Rising Tide trying to cast aside the doubts, the aspersions, and the disbelievers and say we are not 1st seed by a matter of technicality. We are the 1st seed because we deserved it off the back of our play. They have one more game, winner takes all, to really stamp that statement out into the universe. We'll see if they can do it on the other side of a short break. You don't want to go anywhere. It's all come down to this.
What are you willing to lose? You cover your wounds, but underneath them a million voices in your head that whisper, stop now. Another twist of the knife, a turn of the screws. It's all in your mind and it's fighting you on yourself. The storm is coming. Wow, kid, what you gonna do now? It's your reflection looking back to pull you down. So are you gonna die today or make it out alive? You gotta conquer the monster in your head and then you'll fly, fly, Phoenix fly. It's time came out of the ashes underneath you. A million voices in the crowd, they're screaming, stop now. Well, let them swallow the pride, you're turning the tide to true believers. Got them in the palm of your hand, you're playing God now. What you gonna do now? It's your reflection looking back to pull you down. So are you gonna die today or make it out alive? You gotta conquer the monster in your head, and then you'll fly, fly, Phoenix fly. It's time for a new empire. Go bury your demons, then tear down the ceiling, Phoenix fly. What you gonna do So are you gonna die today or make it out alive? You gotta conquer the monster in your head, and then you'll fly, fly, Phoenix fly. It's time for a new empire. Go bury your demons, then tear down the ceiling, Phoenix fly.
We at the top again, now what? We lay the crown, but count us higher than a mountain. And we be up here for the long run, strapping for a long one. We got everybody on one. Now you coming at the king, so you better not miss. And we only get stronger with everything I carry up on my back. You should paint it up with a target. Why would you dare me to do it again? Come get your spoiler out my head. We're taking over. We're taking over. Hey, look at you coming on, name you ought to know by now that we're taking over. We're taking over. Hey, maybe you wonder what your future's gonna be, but I got it all locked up. Take a lap now, don't be mad now. Run it back, run it back. I got bodies lining up, think you're dreaming of greatness. Send you back home, let you wake up. Why would you dare me to do it again? Come get your spoiler out my head. We're taking over. We're taking over. Hey, look at you coming on, name you ought to know by now that we're taking over.
It's time for game number 3. One of these teams' journeys ends here. They will be going home. The other will move on to the quarterfinals. We will see which it will be. Infinite Dodge and Kevbo coming at you. And for the third time, we see Gecko Hawks going for a 5-man stack. This one actually going pretty well as they find the pullback. That's the first blood for Gecko Hawks right down the mid lane.
Well, it's weird. I have no clue why Swag Money Boy didn't flash there. But it is going to cost them their lives. And
That's not an auspicious start for Rising Tide, to say the least, here at the beginning of Game 3, Kevbo. That is absolutely wild. The hook coming through, or rather the pullback from Darius. Wargloves already making this champion pick pay off. There will be some vision here from Rising Tide, so they will know that for the third game in a row, it will be double bot to top clears. These junglers seem allergic to the bot lane, and considering how strong Overrush and Bigby have looked in this series, it's a bit surprising to me, but they want to be up top. They want to influence these bruisers, these fighters who are going to be duking it out. We'll see which one gets the advantage, but so many people participated in that first blood play, Kevbo. That's already a 600 gold lead for Gecko Hawks, just as the first CS is going through.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice little start for everyone for Gecko Hawks. But anyways, I would expect them to win early, especially like Darius into Aatrox sounds really Darius favored early.
Yeah.
However, if they are able to get to the late game, the ability of Rising Tide to team fight and just blow everyone up before there really is a chance for Gecko Hawks to get much damage out is a little bit scary. I think Gecko Hawks are honestly pretty lacking in damage overall.
Yeah, they have a utility-focused AD carry, right? And while it will be the lethal tempo attack speed build, which definitely does more damage for the Ashe, it's still not the level of hyper carry capability that somebody like Jinx has, so you're really depending on this Darius to snowball to carry a big lead forward so that your damage can keep up. And we'll see it start here, but one of the issues is that Spoopy Lance did go for that buff-to-buff clear, so he will be up top right before Swag Money. He forces the flash for Flash. Wargloves wasn't actually doing so well in that trade, but will have an advantage now in this lane.
Yeah, and good respect there by AFK Boulder. If the root did come out from the side of Spoopy Lance, it was just going to mean a kill over. Boulder, however, really doing well in the trades thus far, has a pretty good health advantage as trying to bait the Darius in towards this possible gank angle.
And doing a pretty good job as well, because he has that freeze too, so Darius is going to have to step forward, or he's going to miss a whole lot there.
Yeah, absolutely, and already a CS lead for Overrush in the bot side. Looking pretty good, lands that zap as well. Bigby and Overrush going to be chilling, I think, for a lot of this early game, just trying to build up that CS lead that they have had in the last couple of games as well.
Yeah, that's the, not that we track these kinds of stats, like, over the course of a whole series, right? But I'd be curious to see what the total CS score for each of these AD carries is moving forward, as it was actually a requirement to bring Spoopy Lance up here, delay his tempo, delay his first back timer here to get him to break that freeze alongside Warglove. Swag Moneyboy going to take that opportunity to move into the jungle, take these camps that Spoopy Lance didn't take on the first way through. Maokai, not the best AoE early, so it doesn't really do well into these multi-target camps. Leaves them up for Swag Moneyboy to collect for himself. Even come around and show his face to threaten the opposing bot lane, but that ward that they have does mean that Jiraxel will harass him off, pick up some of these Kruggies. The handshake so close from Calico, but not going to find its mark. And Overrush just crashing this wave, continuing to stay up on top.
Yeah. And actually even opting into the call as well. Really confident in their ability to farm in this third game. I'm surprised to not see any look towards this dragon early, as Swag Money going to actually just get the back in here.
Yeah, it's going to be the nice reset off the wave push. Once that bounces out, they will be able to collect it and ski even further ahead, although it looks like they're maybe sticking around. Maybe they're thinking about Drake here, Kev.
Yeah, I mean, Overrush and Bigby do have not too hard time, it would seem, thus far, pushing in the wave and kind of controlling the wave state however they want. As Coconut going to struggle a little bit to clear out these turrets. Going to take a big chunk of damage there, honestly, from just those two turrets. And it is continued early CS leads and at least wave state control for the side of Rising Tide. They are going to spot out Spooky Lance here.
Yeah, it looks like maybe a fight is a brewing, however, because Swag Money is hanging around. It's the 3v3, and the level advantage is to the jungler of Rising Tide, so Spoopy Lance can try and knock him away, but the double bandage toss lockdown is there, and this should be the first kill of the game for Rising Tide, given over to the priority target of Overrush. That's not where you want. However, Spoopy Lance living for quite a while, forcing the flash from Overrush to try and follow up. That is the volley, and now the Rangers' focus is stacked up the heal as well. They're trying so hard are the Geckos to not give this one over, and they're being very successful in doing it so far. Bigby just living with a sliver is now the exhaust swimming. Gerbs can't collect on either. So many summoner spells exchanged there, but nothing actually doing for either. And a big sigh of relief comes through for Geckos as they don't give over a kill to that Jinx.
Yeah, that was a little bit misexecution and a little bit of good play as Boulder going to get a couple of the stacks onto them. Gloves with a nice auto reset. But the Aatrox continuing to be an issue, built up a 20 CS lead already. And Draxel actually doing a good job in this third game of keeping the CS even.
Yeah, definitely. So what's really unfortunate is Wargloves is back in his comfort zone, right? For really the first time, we see him on a true AD split-pushing fighter. You know, this side-laning terror. Didn't really see that in the first two games with Warwick, with Warwick and Kennen. And to see him go down so far early to the Aatrox, who I feel like he should have had some lane pressure against level 1, really could have zoned off of the wave as the Plat top laner in this Plat versus Gold top laner equation. A little bit disappointed in his performance thus far. Will come and collect his honey fruit and also maybe either set up the scuttle for his jungler or just take it away for himself, but things still firmly in Rising Tide's control. They have gone from 600 gold down to 500 gold up, so it's been a 1,000 gold swing over the course of the first 8 minutes back over towards Typhoon. Now, the first objective of the game will be started up here. It is the Rift Herald. Curious to see if they try and contest up here or trade for the Drake.
Yeah, I think Swag Money making the right call there. The Aatrox has set up a freeze on their own, so just going to continue to keep the freeze up on the top side. Mid lane, the wave's pretty even, and Vex can clear it pretty quickly on her own. Is actually, it looks like, winning out on the trade here. Wave going to reset, and they are looking for Boulder here on the top side.
I think Lance probably just trying to break the freeze. We've seen this song and dance before, right? Had to come up to bail out Wargloves last time around. Now we'll do it again as we see actually Jiraxel finally popping off in the bot lane, finds one, and with this Rangers focus with the handshake back, he picks up the double kill. Finally getting to flex his muscles. Flex against Overrush has been bullying him all game long. Acid Coconut as well, trying to show off a little on a signature pick, will force the jungler to come and bail out Gerbs now, who has been having a rough time as that was close. That rocket almost resulted in a super mega death for Jiraxel, but instead will live with a sliver, flash the emote, get a nice reset.
Yeah, and Draxel on this Ashe, this bot lane from GeckoHawks getting this pairing for a second game in a row, going from a game 1 where they really, they died in a 2v1, to Overrush, to going ahead and winning the 2v2 in this game 3. They're really showing up when it counts. But it will still be this first drag, it looks like, going over to the side of Rising Tide. And, you know, we said it in the last game, the CS leads are really where RTT are trying to hedge their bets, it does seem. Going to have early objective control on these dragons, I think, is also really good for them, considering that you would expect the early game team to do more.
Oh no, Coconut in the wrong place at the wrong time, but there's the backup. It's going to be the bailout into the Kisted Advance to find the Amumu. The CC lockdown, just like in game 2, so sick from the side of Geckos. So the Drake goes over to the side of Rising Tide, but the fight goes to the Geckos as Boulder now forced to flash. The flash follow, the 5 stacks into the dunk. Wargloves making Boulder pay at last. He's been biding his time. He's been waiting to bring down that Executioner's axe, and he finally does so. Gecko's up 2,000 gold.
Yeah, it is looking like RTT is going to end up struggling. The Twisted Advance going to come through.
Yeah, that was just such a nice setup right into the missile from Coconut. He follows through, he flies in like Superman, and Geckos have completely reversed the tide of this series. They hard stomped Game 2 after taking a rough L in Game 1. They were given these comfort picks again. They were given Maokai for the third game, and it's just looking as strong as it does at Worlds with all of this setup that it offers. Now they're finally winning in both side lanes. I mean, Darius might still be down gold a little bit just because of the CS, but that kill going to do so much for him. It's their game to lose from here on out as we take a look back at that last team fight, Kev.
Yeah, and like you said, it just was the phenomenal setup. And almost a crossfire kind of angle there with the overgrowth and the
hostile takeover.
Yep, I had it. It was there. It was almost there.
On the tip of your tongue.
But War Gloves, like you said, also, I mean, that's just good Darius play. It's stacking up the passive stacks, making sure you get them low, and then the ultimate, once you're at 5 stacks, going to tear through Boulder.
Definitely the scary stuff that you don't want to see. It was going so well for Rising Tide until it wasn't. Even after giving up that first blood, they fought back and got themselves in a great position, but just not executing in these teamfight and skirmish situations. It's quite unfortunate. You can't even pin it on the draft this time, Kev, because last time we said, okay, set jungle, this is weird, doesn't really do much, but Swag Money looked great on Amumu in Game 1. It's just not really going Rising Tide's way this time around.
Yeah, I think Rising Tide are really falling into what we see a lot of these gold teams struggle with, which is just over-aggression. You know, when you pick these champs that need to scale, like the Jinx, like something, you know, even like Heimerdinger that really wants a couple items before they start team fighting, it is okay to just farm and play safe, right? You really, at this point, I think I want to just see RTT just avoid team fighting. Unless there's a huge numbers advantage, like in this case here, where Boulder might be getting the War Gloves in. Or,
yeah, here comes the second sweet spot, but it's not going to connect. War Gloves gets on out. Didn't even have the Ghost available either. That was just purely off the back of that Hearthbound Axe passive, getting him out of dodge. The tier 2 boots as well, going to offer more than the brown sacks on Aatrox's feet. So, still down CS, but dodging out on the ganks. Frustrating RTT, not allowing them to find any advantages. And, yeah, Gecko's still in a good spot, but here comes Bigby from behind. That's the great headbutt, the Hex Flash angle that we were so much talking about in Game 2, but Coconut has the flash available, has the tools to get out. That's the advantage of being ahead, of winning the earlier fights. You have more tools to play with than the opponent, Kev, and you get to live when otherwise you might have died.
yeah, and good Alistar play there, but Acid going to get out just barely. RTT trying to be proactive, which I like to see, but like the point I was trying to make is, at this point, I feel like you just wait until Jinx has 3 items before you even try to team fight again.
It's very well possible that's what they'll be forced to do. They did buy themselves some buffer time, right, by getting that first Infernal Drake, so they delayed any sort of stacking coming out from Gecko that could act as their win condition in this comp. It's a great individual Drake to have to even things up for yourself a little bit as well. The scary part is the Fed member is the Ashe here, right? Jiraxel will be getting levels pretty quickly. Soon will be on that tier 2 ultimate. Will be on such a short cooldown, can start fights from so far away that it's not quite as simple as just not opting into team fights, right? If you get hit by that max distance Gen Crystal Arrow, you're basically completely dead because Coconut can follow up. The Twisted Advance will find you. The Hostile Takeover will find you. So RTT really put themselves in a rough spot early, but the priority from Gecko is actually towards this Rift Herald after Plates have fallen instead of setting up for the Drake. So RTT really not in a bad spot considering.
Yeah, RTT don't know that they're there though, so they're going to start this pretty late, and I think the team fight is going to just come to them before they're able to take this. As you see, they're already backing off. I think
they didn't have their
right
Jinx. That's rough. That means, oh, and here comes the deep flank TP. Draxel walking right over it. Did he have his camera panned? No, he's just not afraid. He is playing bold. He's playing confidently, as that's going to be the fear coming through onto Bigby. And now the 3-man hostile takeover as Swag Money goes over the wall. But here comes Vex onto Swag Boulder. And now the cleanse burns from Overrush and the flash as well. Getting the hell out of there. Does not want to continue. Does not want to keep fighting. Does not believe that Rising Tide can do anything at all in the face of the Geckos. The Hawks have found their prey. They have swooped down, and they will collect the dragon as well. They get the first turret in the top lane too, Kev.
Yeah, really unfortunate stuff. But we did start to see a little bit of the inklings of a possible RTT advantage. They are already doing a lot of damage. Heimerdinger finally got to the Andre's, going to be feeling pretty nice.
Because Spoopy Lance was getting a bit fresh, a bit too aggravated there, but is going to get on out because he's so tanky as Gecko Hawks complete their second turret take. But yeah, you're absolutely right here, Kev. The Heimerdinger does have some damage, but as we take a look at this last fight, we'll see that it wasn't quite enough to make a difference for Rising Tide.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just disorganized here. Swag Money is so far forward away from their team. And then look at the target priority, right? You have the Jinx and the Alistar going towards the Renata instead of turning back towards their team. And it means that the Ashe is able to just free fire onto the Aatrox and onto Amumu there. So a bit unfortunate. I think still, like we said, forcing the issue a bit too early. They really need to take a breath, let themselves scale up. You know, even if you lose all of your tier 2s, if you get to that point where Jinx has 3 items and Heimerdinger has 3 items, you're going to be feeling really good in these team fights still, especially if you're able to get those resets.
Maybe. It will be an uphill battle either way. Even if they do try and scale up to 3 items, Ashe might not be as much of a hyper carry as Jinx, but on 5 items, you have to figure Ashe will do as much as Jinx on 3, right? Especially if you have that Ro16 to sort of match the AoE that Jinx can put out. So you are on a clock as Rising Tide. Even though you have the scaling, you can't let them just keep getting all these unseeded advantages for free. You have to try and find some sort of way to stem the bleeding, find a pick on the other side of the map, find a numbers advantage fight, exploit the Darius in the side lane maybe. You gotta do something, because if you sit back passively, it feels like Gecko Hawks have enough of a wombo composition that they will be able to convert cleanly. For now, though, no objectives on the map, no big sieges coming through. We're just waiting for somebody to make that step a little bit too far forward.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. Like, you want to stem the bleeding as much as you can and slow the game down, right? If we keep having these fights every 2 to 3 minutes, sometimes, you know, it's a little longer, we wait for these objectives, but, you know, like, even in this scenario, I feel like it's smarter. You know, Overrush can clear it out a little bit, but you still gotta be so safe, because if, like you said, if RTT are able to get this tower down, are able to land a combo onto the Jinx early, it's probably just going to be curtains.
And the range advantage is actually showing through pretty big here. Jinx is an 80 carry in an auto attack battle, right? Tends to outperform the Ashe in terms of range, but you have that long range AoE of the volley, whereas the Zap is a little bit more single target, even though it outranges. You can't really stop the siege from coming through with the Vex's artillery, with the Ashe, you know, letting loose these arrows from the quiver. And what really scares me, as Overrush is going to be the scared one, as in Coconut, just absolutely jump scaring him, looking for more, not gonna find it. What scares me, Kevbo, is that in Game 2, even though this is sort of how things went with Gecko Hawks winning all the fights and getting ahead big time, Boulder and Overrush were still almost flame horizoning their opponents in terms of CS, but Draxel right on Overrush's tail here in Game 3 in terms of the CS, and I mean, Boulder is not very far ahead either, not nearly as much as he was in the early, only about 25 CS or so many less avenues for Rising Tide to find gold as they continue losing these fights.
Yeah, it seems like RTT's call here was to pick scaling champions and still outlane their opponents. Really trying to have their cake and eat it too, but it just didn't work out for them, it seems like, thus far in this game. Of course, you know, there is still the scaling angle. You have the Jinx late game hopium still here, but Warglove's actually finally maybe going to get caught here. Has popped the ghost, but not too many angles.
But Bigby can't even stack up the stun in time. Warglove's so tanky as this fighter build coming through means he just needs to use that Hearthbound Axe passive, just needs to use the Ghost, and he will get on out. And now Rising Tide seems to be making the call for the Baron. If we could get the... Never mind, don't need the Vision Toggle. That's going to be the scouting of the Hawk coming on through from Jiraxel. He gets it onto that Baron and sees what they're going for. So that is going to be another move kept from progressing. The floodgates have been locked up here for GHK. No Typhoon will hit the shore. Rising Tide really stuck in a bad spot right now. Going to be trying to aggress towards some of these tier 1s in the side lanes. Interestingly enough, Kevbo, they don't actually have objective bounties on them, so it almost feels bad taking these tier 1s now because you're not getting as much value out of them as you could be if you just waited another minute or so, but you got to take the chance to get any gold advantage you can when you can get it.
Yeah, honestly, I think pretty good macro there from RTT, though, forcing Gecko Hawks around the map. Of course, at this point, it is going to be a lot harder to maybe say, hey, we're taking Baron, you can't take this dragon. But still, I think perfectly fine to give this one over. It is just the second dragon. Hextech going to be an interesting soul. I think this is the second Hextech soul we are getting in this series. So shout out Hextech soul. But, you know, making smart calls, RTT again, as Gerb's actually going to get...
Yeah, he's just getting destroyed there. I mean, that's been a staple of this series. And even in the game, they won Gerbs on that Heimerdinger, kept getting caught out of position and getting bursted down. Now, without your mid laner, without a principal member, and with no vision, Gecko Hawks feel absolutely brazen and moving forward for this Baron. Looks like Boulder not going to commit the TP to come up here and try and contest either. Just going to try and trade a tier 2 with an objective bounty on it. Will be a decent amount of gold, as that rocket was so close to stealing it, but this is not patch 11.14. This is not the nightmare patch in which Jinx could always steal the Baron. It will go through. The jungler's life will be traded, and Rising Tide seems to be floundering about. They seem to be really committed to the bit here, Kevbo. It seems like they will be finishing their third split of Victoris this year with their worst standing of the year.
It's going to be a very large climb for RTT to get back into this game. Simply because of what you said, right? You know, Jinx, you are on 2 items, but two items on Jinx versus after a back, what I'm assuming is probably going to be 3.5 items from the Ashe here. It's just... It's
hard.
Good.
It's rough. It's no good. It's no bueno for Rising Tide. Rover Rush can at least sort of clear waves now, but the Runon second on top of Kraken Slayer, that's so little attack damage, actually. You're going to have to basically be forced into an Infinity Edge third as Gerbs once again gets hit up, gets smacked down, gets caught in the wrong spot with Spoopy on the deep flank, already locks up one. Here comes the Aatrox, but he's in the midst of a bunch of people he doesn't want to be with. He has to pop that World Ender. He has to run like hell, run for his life. Another tier 2 going over to the Gecko Hawks. Going to go ahead and sweep on through this bottom lane. It's been controlled. It's been dominant. It's been so impressive from Gecko Hawks here in this game 3, completely turning their fortunes around as Overrush, feeling the hurt, feeling the pain, feeling the pressure. Boulder going for a bit of a trade here, but not going to actually be able to convert on that one. Meanwhile, his tier 3 just goes down, Kev.
Yeah, and the inhibitor is going to go down as well. It feels really bad. Wargloves looking for the Aatrox, not going to find him. But, you know, RTT is just so far down at this point that unless you get a Jinx Miracle angle, I really don't know how you get back into this game.
The one thing I'll give to Gecko Hawks, right, or rather to RTT, is we see the aggressive move forward from Swag Money trying to find the desperation fight. Spoopy lands, goes into that twisted advance to proc the aftershock to dodge from the infernal chains. It was actually so well played to prevent Boulder from locking him up, and now the enchanted crystal arrow chunks out Gerbs, and it is dissuaded, it is prevented, it is aggravated from the side of Rising Tide. They just cannot convert as Boulder gets knocked into the midst of the meat grinder. He goes down, and now it's going to be Vex diving forward, but maybe Coconut's finally gone too far. I was going to point out that Gecko Hawks already threw on the Nexus once this series. It didn't come back to haunt them in that game too, but now the shutdown for Overrush just might. They over-aggress, they got too confident, they lose 3 members, including a fat shutdown right onto the member you least want it to go to. Now that gold lead stays at 8K, but this is not where you want to be.
It's not over till the Nexus goes down. Overrush going to pick that up, going to pick up this tier 1 very quickly as well, maybe even a tier 2.
Get out of there, Big B. Give her the solo gold. Why are you... Ah, no, that's an objective bounty turret as well. You don't need that. You want your Jinx. If we can get the gold real quick, I want to see if they have the Infinity Edge ready to go. No, not quite, but it will be a BF sword and a crit cloak coming on through for Overrush here. That's going to feel so good. Actually going to be the pickaxe, but we will get a re-look here during this replay at how Gecko Hawks just finally went a little wrong.
Yeah, and it is Spoopy Lance getting a good pick onto Coconut here. But look at the Vex just going way too far forward. Dies under tower. Spoopy Lance follows up to try and save. The bailout not going to do anything, and they just continue walking it down as we do want to, I think, flip back to live here real quick. We are setting up for this soul point. I think making the smart call here. RTT.
They're not contesting. They have one more. They have a clock, right? They have a timer as the steal once again almost coming through. But not going to be found, as now it's Overrush hit with a very long distance ultimate, and that might just do it, because without the Jinx, you have very little hope. But Coconut learning their lesson, going to temper the aggression, going to resist the urge to go over as Warglove's healing up over Swag, who's getting poked out. These Heimerdinger turrets doing a good job to repeal the siege. No Baron for the side of Gecko Hawks. They can go and look for it in just 50 seconds. However, maybe they want to crack another inhib because they have super minion pressure streaming through the bot lane. They can play it slow here, Kev, and it looks like they are going to. Here comes the Roots. They will find just the top laner, is now going deep as Spoopy Lance. He heals so hard, actually, as Swag trying to turn it around, but you deal no damage. Boulder trading effectively onto War Gloves, but he didn't have enough time to make it stick, and now Rising Tide are being felled one by one. The axe swings true for War Gloves. Not going to overpush, not going to overaggress, not going to make the mistakes of Game 2 and throw on that Nexus. Instead, they're going for the standard play.
Yeah, Overrush does come back, but with no inhibitors, it looks like going to be struggling. They might actually be able to contest a little bit here. Jinx not going to be able to get the shutdown, but they should be able to get resets here.
Lance going to get the Shurelya's from his support, actually, as well as the shielding, but it's not going to be enough to save him. Now your jungler's down with the Baron up, but that shouldn't matter too much because it is 3 waves of double supers moving into that enemy base. That's the insurance you buy yourself by taking that top inhib so you can reset, respawn, wait for your Maokai before you make an attempt at it. And now we will go into a quick little replay and see what went down on this siege.
Yeah, this twisted advance at the start by Spoopy Lance is very good, very smart. They're able to just walk up and take this for free, and the continued stepping forward by Spoopy Lance, absolutely phenomenal. Boulder almost got the 1v1 on the other side, but Spoopy Lance, just this Maokai pick is so strong. Big B almost dies to the guillotine, but not going to be taken down by that one. It's a bit of a weird angle. As we flip back to live here, it is actually Gecko Hawks looking towards this Baron. They have the super minions pushed in. They know that no one's here. Swag Money can maybe look for a steal, but they really do need to get this one down if they want a chance at winning this game.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. Swag comes in. Don't hit the Baron. Okay, they get it. It was close. It's the Darius who finds it, but Swag cannot find the steal. That could have been a bit of a spooky angle as Gerb's forced to flash, and the dominoes are falling. The chain has been started. Clicking, clacking down, and it looks like the final domino will fall in the base right now as the Shirelles is popped. Gecko Hawks finally foregoing their poise, foregoing their control. They're saying, we want to end this right here, right now, complete the reverse sweep, complete the comeback, find them in their base, find their nexus. They're going to actually be pretty smart, though. They're taking the third inhib again. No need to overexert yourself, Kev. You gotta hedge your bets, but this Nexus looks like it will inevitably be theirs as this first and final Nexus turret is in their sights, but wave clear's actually not too bad right now.
Yeah, the problem is that they have these waves just crashing continuously with the Baron buff as well. They should be able to slowly chip down at this one. Wave clear, like you said though, is pretty nice. Overrush. Big B goes forward.
Yeah, they're trying to find something. This is the last-ditch effort. They're trying to defend before their base does go down. Jiraxel is finding all of the DPS, but look at AFK Boulder actually finding so much damage onto the backline. Who will go down the exchange for Solero? Only finds Big B, but that was the hostile takeover to end it all. It sets everything up. That was the killing blow. That was the coup de grace. And it will be Gecko Hawks saying, you are no first seed. You are no Golden Providence. You are but mortals, and we will destroy you to move on up to the quarterfinals. Goodbye, Rising Tide. Hello, Gecko Hawks. They did it, Kev. They did it.
That series. That was a series.
That was one of the series of all time.
That was absolutely crazy. This combo from Gecko Hawks, their first 3 rotation, they stuck to it in the second game, and it paid off yet again. I mean, Ashe, Jiraxel, the enchanted crystal arrows from downtown throughout this series, over and over and over again, just caught out members of Rising Tide. I don't know what to say. It just seemed like their CC combos and their setups for these picks were on point, and Rising Tide just didn't respect it.
No, they certainly did it, and it sort of felt like ego was a big contributing factor here with RTT. And again, I've had a lot of experience with Rising Tide as an org with both of their gold plat teams. I, had a chance to interview RTT a few times over the course of the past 2 splits because they have made playoff runs before. And I know that for Typhoon, ego has been a challenge before. Peakley in particular, when he was the top laner on this squad, famous for a bit of an ego. Gerbs as well. They want to dominate. They don't just want to win. They really want to show off. And in game 2, that sort of led to their demise. You saw some picks that weren't necessarily as effective as they should have been, the likes of Fiora, the set jungle, which we haven't seen in so long, and didn't prove to be very effective. And Gecko Hawks, they never stopped playing their game. They never stopped grinding. They never gave up, even after a pretty tough game 1 where it felt like they got run around pretty hard. And they dominated, basically, through both of the last 2 games. And they come through rightfully on top.
Yeah, as we're gonna get some beautiful insight.
Ha! I like that.
Bro. Thoughts?
I got no words.
He'd be thinking.
I don't have any words. Like,
honestly, that's the point I'm
crazy.
at.
Wow. Okay, so not only were all 3 of us wrong on our predictions for the day, but history has been made. RIP Rising Tide, as they have finished their lowest placing in playoffs.
On top of that, I think it's important to note, I've been with VAS 2 splits. And 2 splits in a row, we've watched a 4 seed beat a 1 seed in round 1.
Yes, I'm about to bring that up as well. This is, once again, has happened. The 4th seed takes down the 1st seed from another group. Feels bad, man. Rising Tide Typhoon fans on Pack Watch right now. It's a sad day to be a Rising Tide fan, but it's a great day if you are one of them Gecko Hawks, because oh my god, the absolute shellacking. It's like, it's not even the fact that they won, it's the fact on how strong they looked in the victories, right? Like, these long drawn out games, yeah, sure, they can work on their closing skills a bit, but you mean to tell me you're up like 12K at like 25 minutes, 10-0, literally like watching your enemy team limp across a line to just drop down a ward? Like, dog, in the game, forfeit. I won 5 out of that. I don't even care. But real big ups to the Gecko Hawk squad as we are getting the MVP poll drummed up.
I'm working on that. I will get that.
Dot's working on that. Like I said, it's getting drummed up. It ain't ready yet. But yeah, like, this is huge. This is huge, right? Once again, a 4th seed has beaten the 1st seed. And once again, we have to beg the question, which group was actually really hard, you know? Like, would this have been different if this was, in fact, Golden Providence before they imploded and were sent to the Shadow Realm? Would this be different? Would Gecko Hawks be in this situation? Would Rising Tide be against another team and actually might have won this round of 16 matchup? You know, there's just so many questions and intangibles and what ifs that will not be answered because the Gecko Hawks decided to kick down the door, plant their flag, and yell at the loudest they could possibly yell and say, "We are here, we're going for the gold."
They went caw, and then they swept in with their talons and did what they had to do. It was pretty sweet. Yeah, I think so. I think that's what a Gecko Hawk would sound like. I'm not entirely sure, as it's a fictional animal, as I'm sure we have been making very clear over the course of our show tonight. But it would be sweet if it was a real animal. Just to sort of put a closing note on Rising Tide, I think we focused on them a bit too much here, given how much Gecko Hawks really proved that we shouldn't have been. But just to put the closing note on Rising Tide, this officially means that their season looks like the most recent Dogecoin graphs, right? It was all downhill. From semis, from finals to quarters to out in round of 16. So yeah. Rest in peace, Typhoon, but all hail the new kings. Well, not kings, but new challengers in Gecko Hawks. Who knows how deep they'll go? We've heard Group D called the Group of Death. D stands for death for a reason, so we'll see if they can continue their hot streak through playoffs and make some more upsets happen, as we do have the MVP poll out in chat, by the way. I did get that finished up, so make sure to make your voice heard on who the MVP was. I'm a little bit split. What do you guys think?
I think they had a really bad game one, but Jiraxi, I mean, it was the freaking from downtown arrows all game 2 and 3, like, did not miss and set up their team for absolute success. I think they deserve MVP regardless of how the MVP poll goes. As looks like there's a lot of support fans hanging out.
I was gonna say, Draxel definitely bounced back in a big way on Ashe in the second 2 games. I think Draxel and Coconut as a unit, the Enchanted Crystal Arrow into, I can never remember what Vex's ultimate is called, but that double missile to dive into the backline, stun up priority targets, was so well executed from them basically every time. But Calico, who I've massively disrespected and called Calicky in the poll, I am so sorry. I'm pulling double duty here. I was typing as fast as my little fingers could handle, and I made a typo. I messed up. But I want to give it to Calico. I want to give that honor over to the support player because it was 2 amazing Renata games. I don't recall a single bad hostile takeover, and I feel like that was really the deciding factor that made so many of those team fights, which allowed Gecko Hawks to win in the early game and get themselves ahead, what they were, right?
I mean, it was insane. Like, around the objective fights, especially around those choke points, the potential dragon contest, and it's not even the fact that, like, they were just game saving or game changing. It just added on to the beatdown, you know? Like, it looked as if Rising Tide were in a position to make some comebacks in like an oddly even fight, you know? Like, they were undermanned. Oh no, then Calico's just like, ha ha ha, go Magic Fairy Dust, go. You know, it's like when you're going around the corner and you see 2 homeless people find the bodega. Never mind, let's not talk about that. It's just very
Bro, we're getting too close to home. I come here for escapism. I come here to talk about League of Legends. It was a desperate battle, though. That is.
I think also it's important to note how well Lance performed on the second 2 games.
Yeah.
On the Maokai. Like, the setup for the first 3 kills in game 2 was some of the best Maokai play I have seen. Period.
Always finding crazy good knockbacks too.
Yeah.
I literally love how as soon as like, I want to say it was like last month when the patch came out, and I'm like, Maokai changes. Oh my god. Kevo's like, I don't know what he does or what he's gonna do. And ever since that moment, Maokai everywhere. Maokai stonks just completely shot through the roof. I'm glad I have every single Maokai skin, because that was like one of my first champions that I just absolutely fell in love with. I'm like, he's a revenge tree? Like, bro, I love the imps from Lord of the Rings. Like, I'm going to do so much work on it. Like, seeing him actually be back in the spotlight is just so awesome. But yes, Spoopy Lance on this Maokai, putting in so much work. Might have been watching a few Worlds VODs because those flanks were amazing.
Yeah, honestly, like, looking at this draft, if I'm the team that is going to be playing them next week, which I believe has been decided, it was Tenebris Phantasm that won the Battle of the Tenebris. So Group B, 3rd seed, beats Group A, 2nd seed. I think something of note. But I think if I'm Phantasm, you gotta get rid of the Maokai. Like, you just gotta get rid of that Maokai.
Yeah,
or
honestly,
pick it, you know.
Take the Maokai off the table. It's just been so strong in so many different teams around the world, honestly. And we do actually have results for multiple of the quarterfinals matches, and I'm sad. It seems that my dark horse for this playoff is completely gone. Rest in peace, natural selection Infinity, because they got 2-0'd. Terrific. Ooh, that means it's To the Moon versus Being Chillers in the next round.
Yeah, that one would be a fun matchup to watch, especially because we have our 1st seed from Group D that I believe only dropped one game in the regular season. I don't know who they dropped it to, actually. But either way, 1 loss in the regular season in a series. And Bing Chillers, who were 2nd for Group B, and their only loss was to CBD.
Right.
Was last year's
winner,
or last split's winner.
Yeah, last split champions. Yeah, CB Dragons looking poised to do it again, give it the run back. Oh man. Well, we do have the MVP done, right?
We do. The screen is a little scuffed, but that's fine. We're onboarding a new producer who's doing an amazing job, but there are going to be some hiccups along the way. But we can go ahead and show that Calico is actually so good that their KDA is infinite and is the MVP here.
I 100% believe it. Great job to Calico. Just, it makes me so happy to see people be good on Renata, because that's a very difficult champion to pilot correctly. And
indeed,
back-to-back amazing performances from Calico. Very well deserved there. Kev, what are your thoughts?
I think they had a really good Renata. I think they got kind of smacked and outroamed in game 1 by the Rel.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good pick. I think that it's obviously something that they are very comfortable on. Like, looking at their OPGGs at the beginning of the game, this guy is a support player, or is an enchanter player. This is something that they really like to play. I'm not really surprised that they did well. I think the Renata has a lot of good places. I think in this, series that they played it really well. I still think, personally, that I would have rather seen it go to either Lance or to Jiraxi. But, you know, the world has decided, fate has decided, I can get behind my support players even if they don't play Blitzcrank.
We got to throw the support players a bone every once in a while. Sure.
We do, yeah. Absolutely agreed. Well, big congrats to the Gecko Hawks for felling the main character of Victoris. Let's see how well they can go and how far they can climb, because next week is going to be a pretty strong matchup up against Tenebris Phantasm. This squad, it's pretty spicy. They got what we might think would be the upset over Ethereal. But hey, honestly, if Gecko Hawks can do this, they can do anything. So,
True. Go Gecko Hawks.
I mean, it's final thoughts on the day before I sign us out, my companions.
Ban Maokai.
Yeah.
Very fair, very fair, very fair. Well, with that being said, from myself and the rest of the broadcast team, all of our lovely, adoring members of Victoris, we will see you next week for more playoffs action. Stay frosty, fellas.
Hey, don't forget, best of fives.
Best
we
of
will
fives.
be starting an hour earlier, so be sure you're here an hour earlier.